For my regular YouTube audience, you know what you need to do next to get to the information that you want from this video. But for those who are new to my channel, here are some key points to help you work best with the information in this video. Number 1. Timestamps and other important information can be found in the description to this video. Number 2. The dates of the energies that are unfolding in the week ahead are in the introduction section of this video. Number 3. The degrees of current planet placements and their location in signs are also in the introduction section of this video. Number 4. I'm a personal astrologer giving a general astrology reading in this video. For some people it will resonate. For others, it will not this week due to the influence of planets in your own personal horoscope. It may vary from week to week how much my forecast will resonate with you. If you would like a reading with me to explore your own chart further, the link is also in the description for this video. Number 5. I am using the traditional system of whole sign astrology for my analysis in this video. Number 6. By listening to the introduction, it's going to help you know what's in store for you this week. And then you can go to your sun, moon, and rising signs for more information on what to expect specifically. Number 7. I use both Vedic and Western astrology techniques with what is known as the tropical astrology chart, or, for those who aren't aware, the Western astrology chart. Please explore the placement of your Western or tropical astrology sun, moon, and rising signs using the timestamps for this video. Number 8. Haters and hateful comments will be removed from this video. This is a safe space for everyone who visits here, and like a good bouncer at a nightclub would do, I will eject any haters from this platform. And now here's a final couple of tidbits of information for you about how to use this video. Astrology is not designed to scare you. It's designed to give you information so that you know what the good and the challenging energies in the week ahead will be, and you can therefore consciously work with them to the best of your advantage. Remember, knowledge is power. Now, there are scammers about, and so if you should receive a message from me on any platform requesting your money for a reading, know that it is a scam. Report them immediately. And now settle in and let's see what the astral skies have in store for the week ahead. Welcome everybody to one of the key planetary energies for 2024 and moving into 2025. This is Mars retrograde that we're looking at this week. Mars will retrograde through Leo and Cancer, and it's going to start this week on December the 6th and go all the way through to February 23, 2025. So this is a very pivotal time of the year when we have a retrograding Mars. This only happens once every 2 years or so. And I will just point out, for those who want to know more about Mars, we're going to be talking greatly in depth about Mars retrograde here in this video. But if you want to know an alternative view of Mars and why Mars is the most important planet in the solar system, check out my astrology discussions video playlist. There is a video there all about Mars and how unique Mars potentially is. Many of our scientists haven't recognized yet just how phenomenally unique Mars may actually really truly be. So do check that video out if you want more juicy astro goodness. But in special news, I am going to be offering my Introduction to Astrology level course with the Royal Stars Academy at heavily reduced rates at the end of this year. So do stay tuned to find out when that will be, and also register your interest at the Royal Stars Academy because you will be the first to be notified by email when places open for this discounted introduction to astrology as level 1 of the Royal Stars Academy. Now, on the 6th of December, Mars will station retrograde at 6 degrees of Leo. Let's put it on the board. This is very important. So 6 degrees of Leo is going to be where Mars will be on the 6th of December. Boom, right here. Then he's going to move back in the backwards in the sky. That's what retrograde motion is. From our vantage point on Earth, it appears that a planet is moving backwards. He's going to move backwards to about 17 degrees of Cancer. So roughly here over that time until the 23rd of February. So he's going to take between 6th of December and 23rd of February, all that time to move backwards to 17 degrees of Cancer. Now, Mars previously was at 17 degrees of Cancer on the 6th of October. So since the 6th of October, we've been in what's known as shadow period because Mars was moving direct across the 17th degree of Cancer and then forward to 6 degrees of Leo, where he stopped apparently in the sky from our vantage point and turned retrograde and began moving backwards to that 17 degrees. So from the 6th of October until May the 5th, we are in the influence of this retrograde Mars energy. And you'll know so much was amped up around the 6th of October with a lot of the warmongering and so forth. We'll talk a bit more about that as we go along through this video. But so essentially from the 6th of October to the 5th of May, Mars will be moving forward, stopping, turning retrograde, moving backwards to the 17th degree again, and then moving forward. And by the 5th of May, 2025, Mars will be back here at 6 degrees of Leo and scooting off through the rest of the solar system. But he does this little backwards song and dance during this period. So actual retrograde, again, at 6 degrees of Leo to 17 degrees of Cancer from the 6th of December to the 23rd of February. But we've been in this shadow period since the 6th of October until the 5th of May. Now, shadow periods are when we begin to see the potential effects and impacts and events of the Mars retrograde period start to manifest. So no coincidences that we saw war in the Middle East become more of a prominent focus around that time when Mars moved into his shadow period. Essentially, we're already in the retrograde zone from the time we move into the shadow period. And this is noticeable with every planet when they move into shadow energy before they go retrograde. How do we view a retrograde Mars? Well, you can consider it a bit like the Superman in the phone booth period of our lives. Not Superman flying through the air, Superman in the phone booth. Mars is the superhero energy of the horoscope. This is the moment for getting ready to fight the bad guys, getting rid of all our cumbersome journalist's attire, like Clark Kent, and putting our Y-fronts on the outside. This is the getting ready phase. Now, Mars retrograde happens every 2 years, and it's always a time of preparation and strategizing for our future. It's not the time to start the fight during Mars retrograde. It's not the time necessarily to take action or instigate new things. By all means, you can take action on something that you've already been working on pre-retrograde and pre-shadow period. Absolutely take action on those things. But starting something new, it's not the time for doing that. Anyone who starts something new, such as instigates a war, under Mars retrograde energy, will usually come off second best and will not be the winner in the circumstance. There's a tidbit of information for you to apply to mundane world astrology going forward. Now, essentially what's happening when Mars is retrograde is he's in a kind of a full moon cycle. You know, he is opposite the sun. Here is the sun over here in sort of Sagittarius, Capricorn, for the duration of the eclipse, and Mars is in the two signs sort of opposite, Capricorn, Cancer. So in that sense, Mars is opposite the sun whenever he is retrograde, and therefore he's also at his closest to the Earth. Again, if you watch that video I mentioned before in my astrology discussions playlist, you'll see why this is so. But he is at his brightest because he's closest to the Earth and he's opposite the sun. When a planet is at its closest point to the Earth, it is powerful, it is more kick-ass. So when a planet is retrograde, it's really doing the heavy-duty work that it came into the solar system to do. But he is Superman running to the phone booth, not rocketing through the air. We are, the metaphor can be then extended to be like we are transitioning from our humanness to our superhero state. That's what is happening. It's a transition period, moving into the next rise up, the next level. This period of Mars retrograde can be a little bit hard to bear because we just want to get out there. We want to kick the butts of the enemy. We want to be up, up and away. But the universe is asking us instead, as I've said, to prepare. Now, it might do this by creating some blockages. It can do this by creating the go slows. And we frequently get the feeling that we're running on the spot, trying to make things happen and nothing's happening. Annoying. But I suggest during this time, listen to your instincts. Find out, look within, what's really driving you. What makes you just so ambitious, so desirous that you will do anything to get it? That is the beacon light. What is driving you forward? Your driving force, your lowest lane. Now, once you know what that is, be prepared to take slow, methodical steps to rescue Lois from the bad guys, to take action, in other words, for your desires. It's the preparation phase. I'll just underscore that. Lex Luthor isn't going anywhere. My friends, if you understand the metaphor that I'm saying here, this is preparation time to get you ready for the action when Mars turns direct out of his retrograde phase, which is going to happen on the 23rd of February. Let's learn a little bit more about Mars and why this time is going to be intense. Let's start with the astronomy of Mars. Mars is a small rocky planet that sits between the Earth and Jupiter. And this makes it the fourth planet from the Sun because we've got Mercury, Venus, Earth, and then Mars. So that's where Mars sits in the scheme of things. Beyond Mars, there is the asteroid belt, and it's my opinion that that was actually a former planet, contrary to what NASA will tell you, and that was a former planet that sat right at the junction point where a planet should be between Mars and Jupiter. It's no longer there. It's now the asteroid belt. So that would have been the fifth planet from the Sun. But back to our fourth planet from the Sun. Sometimes Mars is known as the red planet. And if you go outside and have a look at Mars in the night sky now, this is because Mars is red. Very bright, got a kind of almost an angry looking energy in the sky because he's flickering like a bright red traffic light. Now, this is actually because Mars is covered in iron oxide, which gives him a red look. Because really, Mars is just reflecting sunlight back to the Earth. He's not actually generating light that is red. He's reflecting it back from the Sun, just like every other planet in the solar system does. So the reason Mars is red is because his surface has this iron oxide redness to it. So even if we're looking at Mars without a telescope, we'll see the redness, okay? The days and the seasons on Mars are actually quite similar to the days and seasons here on Earth because both planets, Earth and Mars, are tilted and rotate in the same way. Very interesting, but very similar kinds of planets. It's Mars's rocky nature, though, that makes it quite unique. It has the biggest known volcano and the highest mountain in the whole solar system, much more than what's on Earth and Venus. It is huge. Mount Olympus Mons is its name. It's 21 kilometers high. You could fit 3 Mount Everests sitting on top of one another in Mount Olympus Mons. So I wonder, was it possible that Mount Olympus Mons was the original Mount Olympus of ancient Greek mythology? Just putting that out there, very interesting. As above, so below. The largest volcano represents perhaps the passion and rage of Mars in his nature, astrologically. There's another interesting bit to ponder as well. Mars also has the deepest canyon in the solar system. So the highest point and the lowest point are in Mars's astronomical makeup. I'll get it right in a minute. Now, the canyon is 3 times as deep as the Grand Canyon. It's a whopping 4 kilometers deep. As above, so below. Once more, the depth of emotion we experience in a fit of rage or passion can be likened to the depth of the canyon on Mars. Amazing, isn't it? Mars also has ice water covering its 2 polar caps, so one at the top and one at the bottom, just like Earth does. But because the pressure of the atmosphere on Mars is actually so low, water can't exist on Mars in its liquid state. It has to be frozen. Again, as above, so below. Have you ever been so enraged that you are frozen and can't even speak due to your fury? I know, hands up, I've been there. Usually words come very easily to me, as you probably noticed. But when I get so angry and fired up with passion, I am frozen. I can't get my words out. That's Mars. Mars is like that too. We're so overwhelmed with our rage or the depth of our emotion. Mars also has 2 little moons that orbit it. However, they're not round like most other moons and the Earth moon. They were discovered in 1877 and they're referred to as the mythological twins Phobos, which means panic and fear. Hello. And Demios, which means terror and dread. Nice. Thanks, Mars. Thanks to the people who named those little orbs that go around Mars those terrible names. But as above, so below. We are influenced by these things and these decisions. The mythology of Mars. Well, the planet Mars was named after the ancient Roman god of war. In importance, he was second only to the king of the gods, Jupiter. Second only to Jupiter. Very important. The god Mars ruled military power. Again, Mars in astrology has connections to military power as well. But he was also the representation of power and force as a way to secure peace. He was the son of the gods Jupiter and Juno. And, Mars was actually quite in the Roman pantheon was quite benefic, whereas Aries, his counterpart in the Greek pantheon, was a bit of a joke. He was a warmonger for violence and vengeance and ruthlessness and killing for the hell of it. Mars used force to secure peace. Like I said, son of gods Jupiter and Juno. And Mars fell in love in mythology with Venus, the goddess of beauty and love. Mars, the god, ruled young men, ruled agriculture, ruled aggression and war that delivers peace to the people. He was a defender. He was a protector, warrior god. In ancient Babylon, the god Nergal was aligned with the planet Mars, and Nergal was the war god in ancient Babylonia. But in time, he also developed into the god of the underworld. That's very interesting to note because Mars used to govern Scorpio, the sign that has to do with underworld energy, which has now been given over in modern rulership to Pluto. So in time, he developed into the god of the underworld. After his parents, the gods Enlil and Ninlil, gave him rulership of the underworld. So it was gifted to him. And this is why he had ancient rulership over the sign Scorpio. The Greek version, as I've already mentioned, of the god Mars was the god Aries, although Aries was considered to be, as I've said, needlessly destructive and violent, where the Roman god Mars practiced powerful energies for the purposes of peace. Often in Greek mythologies, Aries would suffer humiliation and defeat. He was considered by the Greeks as a dangerous force that was overwhelming, insatiable in battle, destructive and manslaughtering, but not exactly revered by the people. So there's a difference between the Roman and the Greek god aligning to this planet. And indeed, there's shadow and light in everything. There is the shadow side, which we would refer to as Ares, A-R-E-S, in Mars energy. And there's also the Roman higher noble energy represented by the Roman god Mars in the energy of our little planet. So to sum that up, Mars was the superhero archetype that I've been talking about, and Aries was the warmonger god. Let's look at the astrology. We've already touched a bit on the astrology so far. Let's look a little bit further at the astrology. In astrology, Mars tells us all about our courage and our energy. Where Mars sits in our astrological chart, the map of the sky at the moment we were born, it can tell us so much about how we can get ourselves out of a rut when life is feeling a bit stuck. There are so many ways we can express our energy and our enthusiasm for life, and Mars actually is the planet that shows us how we can best do that. It can tell us about what will stir us into action, what will fire us up. We might be passionate about fixing world problems or taking care of children or creating a career for ourselves, depending on where Mars is in our astrology chart, what house it is in, also what sign. And this is why Mars in our chart is often connected to what will motivate us in life and how we will express our passions, including when we feel angry or when we fall in love with somebody. Mars is the planet that's in charge of two star signs known as Aries and Scorpio. Most of you will know that, but these star signs are a little bit the same as Mars in that Aries is youthful, independent, fast, and competitive, while Scorpio is passionate, strong, controlling, and strategic. All qualities of Mars, but expressed in different ways. Mars is like a warrior or a superhero. We've already established that. Think of Mars in his highest vibrational sense as Superman or as Wonder Woman. I love my Linda Carter. Those who grew up in the 70s and 80s know Wonder Woman. Wherever Mars sits in your chart refers to your hero's journey, where you're going to need to have some energy to put towards being the hero in life, being the warrior, being the superhero. It's also where you can get fired up about something, where you can get passionate about something, where you can shake yourself out of a rut by putting your energy into something. For example, I have Mars in the 6th house of work and everyday routine. Well, what am I passionate about? Here I am for you, my friends. This is my work. This is my weekly routine, giving my astrology forecast to you here on YouTube. This is my work. I'm passionate about it. It's Mars that gives me the enthusiasm to keep showing up and doing the work here for you on YouTube. What about you? Where does Mars sit for you, and how does that relate to your energy and enthusiasm? If you have a weak Mars in the chart, if it's in debilitation, and Mars will be in debilitation when it retrogrades through Cancer, it doesn't do very well in Cancer. If you want to know where Mars is strong and where Mars is weak, I do cover that in the Royal Stars Academy quite extensively, and I'd love to see you all there to do the Royal Stars Academy with me in 2025. But if you have a weak Mars, you may need to strengthen it now and learn to value your inner hero while Mars is going retrograde, and to honor your hero's journey, whatever that hero's journey looks like for you. Also in the Royal Stars Academy, I have remedies for dealing with weak Mars and how to up-level and uplift Mars energy to strengthen it in your chart if you need that. Very interesting topic, the remedies chapter of our Royal Stars Academy. If you have a strong Mars in the chart, it's going to show you where you are being your very own superhero, where you are being courageous in life, where you're an everyday superhero, and that's what you're known for, that superhero, muscular, powerful energy. Mars is the bridge planet between the personal realm and the interpersonal realm. Why? Remember, Mars sits between the Earth and Jupiter in the order in the solar system. Now, Mercury, Venus, Moon, they are personal, deeply personal planets wherever they're placed in our chart. And then we've got Jupiter and Saturn on the other side of Mars, and they are very much about big energies moving within us. We call them the interpersonal planets. They are about us and our relationship with the world around us. And so the Mars energy sits between these two, the personal and the interpersonal. It sits between Venus and Mercury on one side and Jupiter and Saturn on the other. And as such, Mars therefore represents the point between our personality and our identity, how we are known in the world and who we really are. And it's the point between the social order of things. Mars is where we take things beyond ourself for the first time. Before that, Mercury, Venus, it's all very personal. It's all about us. It's our personality. It's our identity. As such, Mars represents the point between our personality and our identity, Venus, Mercury, Moon stuff, and the social order of things, the systems we live in, the communities we're part of, the social order of the world we are incarnate upon. Mars is the middle point between those two things. Mars is where we take things beyond ourselves or outside of ourselves in order to make something happen, to take action. For example, Venus is to want love or feel like we're in love. Mars is the action that we have to take to get that love or to demonstrate that love. It's the doing planet because it's where we take the inner feeling out into the world. It's that intermediary point. Hope you get the idea. It's quite a powerful energy that Mars has. Mars is to put our personal wants into action for ourselves. While Jupiter and Saturn represent the actions that affect society, Mars is what we do for ourselves, to take things from inside of us to action in the world. Mars asks us, who am I individually, and in what way do I interact with society? Big questions, big questions. Mars and Pluto have similar rulership natures, but Mars is the personal assertion and personal power, while Pluto represents more collective assertion and collective power. That's why he's a generational planet, Pluto. But I have talked all about Pluto and what he means in my series on Pluto here on the YouTube channel. Check that out. It's fascinating and very timely, considering Pluto has just changed signs. Now, what if you have a retrograde Mars in your natal chart? Well, as we've already established, retrograde Mars is at its closest and brightest point to the Earth, and therefore its power is actually at its strongest effect. You have Mars overload in your chart if you have a retrograde Mars in your natal chart. Anger becomes sort of internalized. You know, I spoke about that freezing up energy. That's what you often get. It's difficult to express our anger, our passions outwardly. This can often lead to depression when we have a retrograde Mars, because we want to say something, we want to do something, and we feel thwarted. It's like, I can't get it out, we're frozen. Passive-aggressive personalities can actually result from having a retrograde Mars due to this high level of inner frustration, not knowing how or not being able to assert ourselves due to this freezing up energy. It's the energy of repressed anger, passive-aggressive energy. Not good. Let's get it out there. Say it as it is. Just deal with the consequences immediately. Don't hang on to things. This is retrograde Mars in the natal chart can also struggle a bit in competitive spaces. It's a bit too painful. It's very good at coaching, very good at sort of leadership and helping others to excel, but it's almost like debilitating for us if we're in a competitive energy, because we freeze up again with the effects of a retrograde Mars. There's so much more to list. I do, again, talk about that in the Royal Stars Academy quite extensively in a whole video about it. But I just mentioned some things briefly here. Mars retrograde can be significantly lessened if Mars has turned direct in our progress chart. So if that's happened in your progress chart, then a lot of the things I've just been describing here about retrograde Mars will no longer be a big deal for you, because you will have learnt to overcome them. Good news. This Mars retrograde, okay, now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. What is this Mars retrograde all about? Well, one of the first things I noticed is that this Mars retrograde, he'll not only be at his brightest, which we've already talked about, but he will spend a very large chunk of this retrograde time out of bounds. That means beyond the boundaries of the sun, that moves through the declinations to roughly 23 degrees either side of the equator, so 23 degrees of Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. He's moving beyond that. And so this means he's going to be at his closest point to Earth, and he's going to be out of the control of the sun's bounds. This is not an easy energy. He will be strong and he will be wild. Now, look, maybe we need a little bit of wildness on the planet to counteract this end of Pluto in Capricorn era that we're coming out of, where the hierarchies have, put the thumb on us all and made life really horrid for many people, especially in the West and in countries where the West has colonized. It's been awful. And maybe we need a little wildness to sort of stick it to the man. Mars is the old ancient rebel before Uranus was discovered. So we might need a bit of that Martian out of bounds wildness to deal with that. But I just don't think it's going to be an easy time, my friends. I don't think it's going to be an easy time because of this out of bounds nature. Look, the evil on the planet has been pushing for war in the Middle East for eons. And this energy is going to be very difficult to avoid when Mars is retrograde and out of bounds, okay? There are some saving graces. We're going to talk about those in just a second, thank God. But it still would be good for us all to pray for the leaders of the BRICS countries, that they will continue to show the great patience and diplomacy and peacemaking capacity that they've been exhibiting so far against the obnoxious bullies in the playground. So the earth needs all the maturity that these nations can muster right now. Please, we should be praying for the leaders of those countries to make wise choices and keep people on the planet in a state of safety against those horrid bullies. But anyhow, back to this chart of Mars retrograde. Well, Mars, as we know, entered the shadow energy on the 6th of October 2024. And I just want to ask you, think back to that time. This was around the eclipses that occurred. Did you notice people becoming more aggressive, feisty, agitated, or fearful since that point, since Mars moved into shadow energy? No surprises, I've already mentioned this, that on the Earth we had a lot more button pushing to try and instigate war in the mundane astrology. Okay, keep that in mind. What was going on in your personal life that might have been showcasing those Mars energies as well? People who will be most impacted by this Mars retrograde will be people with strong emphasis on the cardinal signs. Maybe you've got your moon there, sun there, your rising sign there, or anybody with personal planets that sit between 17 degrees of Cancer and 6 degrees of Leo. Yikes. If you've got this, I have this. My sun is there. If you've got a planet there, this is a retrograde energy that you will feel more strongly than usual. Also, like I said, if you've got any cardinal planets, you've got Cancer, you've got Aries, you've got Capricorn or Libra strong in some way in your chart, you'll probably feel this retrograde energy most potently. Now, this retrograde will actually reach its most explosive capacity around the time of the opposition with Pluto that will form on the 4th of January 2025. And I'll be talking more about that particular energy in January. So do subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already to find out all about that. Mars up here in Leo will be opposing Pluto at the first 0 degrees of Aquarius at that time. Like I said, I'll talk more about that later. But look, unlike Mars retrograde in 2020, we had another retrograde Mars in 2022, but in 2020, that year of upheaval and disaster, Saturn was squaring Mars retrograde at that time. That's not happening this time. Phew! Rather, what is going to happen is Mars is going to be trined by, retrograde Mars is going to be trined by Saturn. Here is Saturn. Saturn will be sitting, when the actual trine occurs, and it's happening between the 8th to the 11th of February, it will happen at 18 degrees. Saturn will be at 18 degrees of Pisces, making a trine to 18 degrees, Mars at 18 degrees here of Cancer. Well, this is so good. This is so wonderful and will be so helpful. You know, we know all the animosity and angst that Mars 2020 retrograde brought the world. And we know that this is quite a potent Mars energy triggering kind of people who want war. But Saturn trine Mars. Saturn trine Mars brings patience. Thank God. Patience, maturity. Instead of rushing in with your sword wielding and the machine gun flailing and just going off your nut and off your rocker, Mars trine to Saturn is more patient, more willing to wait, more willing to strategize for the benefit of everybody. Saturn trine Mars could well be our saving grace. Thank God this is present. Mars trine Saturn, or in a trine situation with Saturn, will bring strength and perseverance, as well as ambition, but healthy ambition, not overblown, stomp on anyone and be ruthless at any cause ambition. This is healthy ambition. Efficiency, patience, self-discipline are some more symptoms, expressions of Mars in a trine with Saturn. Usually Mars trine Saturn can bring increased sex drive as well, sex appeal and stamina in the bedroom. So those of us in intimate relationships where we'd like to see a bit of that, thumbs up for you. But our energy levels, look, they can be a bit fried with Mars in retrograde motion. So, don't expect, a bit of rompy-pompy every single night. Every second night, maybe. Look, this can instigate a committed long-term partnership, Mars retrograde in a trine to Saturn, but often one where there are big age differences, and you'll need something personal being triggered in your chart for this, and other things playing out in your chart as well. But if you've got those things, then you might meet somebody, maybe there's a big age difference. Mars retrograde, unlike Venus retrograde, it doesn't impact your ability to begin a relationship or, have a partnership. But patience might be required before passion can fully blossom, because Mars is retrograde, trine to Saturn, the god of patience. Success in business and finance can come eventually with a trine from Mars to Saturn. Though with Mars retrograde, again, you're going to need patience and endurance to see things through to the end of this energy. Like I said, which will be sort of around about the 23rd of February when Mars goes direct, and then 5th of May when it's completely all over. But eventually there can be a flourishing of business and finance with this combination too. That's some good energy that's holding space. Thank the good Lord for that. There will also be a trine to Neptune during this retrograde as well. And this is happening at 27 degrees of Pisces, and will trine Mars at 27 degrees of Cancer when that happens. Now, Mars-Neptune brings, I should tell you that this is occurring on the 27th degree, but it's happening between the 12th to the 14th of January, that there will be this trine occurring while Mars is in his retrograde motion. Now, this is a time when we will be more optimistic and more enthusiastic about fulfilling our dreams, Neptune, and our desires. Sometimes it can crystallize our dreams and desires into reality as well. Our dreams might become more high-minded, but perhaps a little bit less concerned with the practical. So we're really in that Neptune energy. Ego and pride won't get in the way as much with a trine between Mars and Neptune, so we can go for things without the wrong motivations, so to speak. We want to help, and we'll be more willing to take action to do so with Mars retrograding in a beautiful relationship with Neptune here. It's an excellent time for spiritual work, both in the personal realm and in the professional realm. If you work in the spiritual realm, like an astrologer or a counselor or some sort of regressionist or something like that, if you're doing sort of spiritual work in the professional realm, you can have a lot of success with this combination. And Neptunian careers will be benefited as well. If you're involved at all with music, poetry, fantasy, film, beautiful works of art can really be created during this particular trine between Mars and Neptune while Mars is so strong and retrograde. We can be assertive in a very non-threatening way as well. That's good. If we need to sort of get our way, we can do it without treading on toes. We also can be, and this is the key point I think for this Mars-Neptune trine, we are protected from harsh, difficult conditions. So that is some good news. Okay, yes, I know the world has gone through harsh, difficult conditions since Mars went into shadow period, because not only have we had the war in the Middle East trying to start, we've had the hurricanes occurring in the southern part of America. And so you're probably hearing me say, oh, Kesenya, I haven't been protected from harsh, difficult conditions. My God, it's been hell. Generally speaking, things would be so much worse if there wasn't a trine from Neptune. So I know it's hard to sort of cling to that when you, have had the rug pulled out from underneath you. But we need to know Neptune does provide a level of divine angelic guidance and support in most conditions that this retrograde period might bring about. We can be very confident that our endeavors will tend to go well when Mars and Neptune are making this aspect to one another, and they usually will go well. So even though Mars is retrograde, that can be the case. There will be 3 fixed stars that are going to be triggered by retrograde Mars. These are Castor, Pollux, and Procyon. Now, Castor is at 20 degrees of Cancer, Pollux is at 23 degrees, and Procyon's at 25 degrees. So around that area of the sky, that is when Mars crosses there might be some activation. Let's explore each of those things individually. Mars, when it's in a conjunction, firstly with Castor, it can give you a lot of travel. So we might see a lot of people traveling at that time when Mars crosses this degree in the horoscope. But it can be even aimless travel. People jump in their cars and just drive. No real point, no real, heading anywhere in particular. So there's an aimlessness. Travel, but aimless. There can be a lot of changes in people's lives, significant changes during this time. There can be marital problems, illness, legal matters sometimes. Even if nothing significant occurs, you might find that life just feels restless and you're a bit bored and you're wanting to stir things up, and maybe if you do, it happens in a way that isn't exactly desirable. So just very changeable, this energy of Mars when it's in conjunction with Castor, so it brings change. What about when Mars is in a conjunction with the fixed star Pollux? Well, again, we've got a difficult energy. Mars with Pollux can bring sort of violence. It can cause people in high positions to fall into ruin. Now, some of us might like to see certain people in high positions come to ruin. I'm not going to, I shouldn't have said that, but we don't want to see the world collapsing around us. Just some people perhaps. It's not an easy energy. Like I said, violence. It has been associated occasionally with this Mars conjunct Pollux in a natal chart with violent death or drowning. It has also been associated with assassination. So don't be surprised if in mundane astrology, when Mars crosses Pollux, that we hear about an assassination somewhere in the world. We've certainly had a few attempts at assassination going on in society this year. Unfortunately, one assassination attempt that actually worked earlier this year as well. But Mars conjunct Pollux, we might be hearing of such things again occurring in the world. We might find people are being obstinate and willful. They don't want to follow any direction. They want to forge ahead on their own path. There might be jealousy that causes a lot of animosity in the world. There can be health problems for some people as well. So for some people, it might be quite a serious health problem. It all depends if you've got planets around this point in the chart. And some people might have some domestic problems. It is not a good energy, Mars conjunct Pollux. I'll be quite frank with you. It's brutal, tyrannical, violent, and cruel. But keep in mind, we have these trines, thank God, holding space for us, keeping the worst at bay. So that's really good to know. Take care of your stomach. Watch what you eat when Mars is conjunct with Pollux, because it has been known to cause stomach upsets and flaring up and inflammation of the stomach. So, you might need some antacid pills on hand or a bit of milk or something like that to settle the tummy. And just to make you feel even more unhappy about this Mars retrograde, when Mars is conjunct Procyon, cruelty, violence, scandal, slander, disgrace and ruin, and in ancient times, danger of dog bites were part of this energy. Now, this said, this is not going to happen to you. None of these things will happen to you if there's nothing with Procyon and Pollux and Castor in your natal chart. If they're just sitting there without anything with them, without any activation from another planet, then you don't need to worry about any of this. What this is likely to bring about is more things like this occurring perhaps in mundane astrology, out there in the world. Maybe, like I think Stephen King has Mars conjunct Procyon. So maybe Stephen King might have to be very careful at this time when Mars crosses retrograde Procyon again. Watch out. Rupert Murdoch has Mars conjunct Procyon. Maybe he's going to be subject to cruelty, violence, or slander or scandal. Let's keep an eye on these people, I think Audrey Hepburn had this in her natal chart as well. And I point that out as a beacon of hope, actually. Just because you've got this in your natal chart doesn't mean that life's going to be hell on earth. Audrey Hepburn had a bit of a difficult childhood. She was in the war and, had very, very hungry, went without food and things like that in the war. Very difficult energy. She was, I think, a spy at one point for the British, I think, from recollection. But she didn't suffer from scandal or slander. She's been highly regarded even posthumously. She's certainly didn't experience disgrace or ruin. or dog bites that I know of, unless you know about a dog bite that Audrey Hepburn got. Cruelty or violence, I don't think were even, part of what she had to endure. So, take these things with a grain of salt. What I'm sharing with you, these are energies that will more likely be triggered in the mundane world, in the political, geopolitical landscape, rather than personally for you. But I share them because they're part of the chart, part of what might be unfolding, and it's worth knowing. So moving away from the chart of Mars retrograde and the things that will be happening under Mars retrograde, let's look at what happens during Mars retrograde for the collective as well as for the individual. We can get increased levels of depression. So we need to be aware of that, and we need to have some strategies at hand. What do you do when you're feeling down and low? And I spoke to this before. Where is Mars in your natal chart? Activate that. For me, in the 6th house, I might do more work. I might research more astrology. I might make more videos for the Royal Stars Academy, 3rd and 4th levels. I might get busy and active with the 6th house energy. And that can sort of redirect this depression of Mars retrograde into where I'm usually activated by Mars in my natal chart. So look at that for yourself. Or else, if you don't know where Mars is on your natal chart, if you don't know what it means, perhaps have a list of things you like to do when you're feeling low, when you're feeling down. There can be an increase in accidents, so we need to be careful during Mars retrograde. We can experience greater frustration due to internalized anger that isn't expressing. And God knows we've been very internally angry on the planet for the last 4 years, even more so now as we see them trying to push in the New World Order. It's frustrating, and that could be exacerbated, of course. But even internalized anger about your personal situation and your personal life. We can have difficulties when Mars is retrograde in any competitive situation. So if you are in a competitive career, it could be very frustrating for you. Heads up on that one. If you are in, like putting some art in an art exhibition, that's a competitive situation. Who's going to win? Who's going to get the blue ribbon? It could be very frustrating for you. You might win, but it could still be a frustrating experience. So we can have difficulties in competitive situations. There can be more court cases and more legal issues and legal problems. So if you're a lawyer, forewarned, forearmed on that one. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second, in sort of fights. That's what the courtroom is. It's sort of a legal way to fight with somebody. I'll talk more about that in a second. We also need to, when Mars is retrograde, make a greater effort to accomplish things, because Mars is the internalized energy, internalized anger, that level of frozen frustration. So we can often meet with failure during Mars retrograde, especially if we lack, endurance to take it to the finish line. Because if we're trying to make something happen and it's just, we're running on the spot, we're like a hamster on the wheel, not trying and not getting anywhere, we feel like a failure. We've got to pace ourselves. And, okay, we need to make greater efforts, it might seem, but don't overdo it to the point where you burn out, because you're going to need endurance to get to the end and then see the rewards for your efforts. At the end of Mars retrograde, I would say in either February or May. A lot of you are going to feel like you've lost your mojo. Legs feel like lead, heavy. Life's hard, frustrating, things aren't gelling. Know that it will end. It's a cycle. Your mojo might be just lacking for this short period of time, and then it's back on track again. Keep that in mind. What houses does Mars rule in your chart? I'll be talking about this for all signs shortly, but these themes will be impacted by Mars retrograde, as will Cancer, the house where Mars is retrograding, as well as the house where your natal Mars sits. So 4 houses potentially: Scorpio house, Aries house, Cancer house, and wherever Mars sits in your natal chart, whatever house that happens to be. What will the impacts be like? Things might feel like they're moving slowly in those areas. You can't get your momentum together. You can't make things happen. You're running on the spot. You feel like you're going backwards. The Tame Impala song, feels like I only go backwards. That's what it's like. That wasn't a very good rendition of that Tame Impala song. My daughter would roll her eyes. Other ways that these houses can be affected is we might feel like something in those houses is being cut out of our life, because Mars is to cut. Mars is surgery. And we might feel like, let's say Mars rules I don't know, Mars might rule our second house. We might feel like a collection we've been accumulating for many, many years now is being cut out of our life. We have to sell it to make ends meet. There goes that art collection I've been working on. Something is cut out of our life pertaining to the house that Mars rules, one of the houses Mars rules, or both, where Mars sits, and the house that Cancer represents in the chart. A little bit more about Mars retrograde. When Mars is retrograde, according to Vedic astrology, we should not buy a new vehicle, not buy a property when Mars is retrograding. We should not shift to a new residence when Mars is retrograde. We should avoid any operations and surgeries. Don't schedule them for when Mars is retrograde. And you shouldn't start any court cases during this period because they will likely result in a financial loss. Why? Why is that? Because if you instigate the court case, then you will come out second best. If you instigate war during Mars retrograde, you will come off second best. If you instigate the fight in any way, shape, or form, you will come off second best. If you are the recipient of that instigation, go for it. You're likely to win. That's how it works. So we should avoid also competitive situations. If we instigate any competition or any conflict, we're likely to lose. So just don't go there. Don't start anything in that regard. Also, according to Vedic astrology, we should be very careful when we're using tools. Remember, accidents can occur during Mars retrograde, and we should be very cautious of fire. Mars rules fire, and so make sure that your evening fire in the fireplace is well and truly out by the time you go to bed. Make sure that there's no blankets hanging over a heater or something like that could catch on fire. Be cautious, be careful, be aware. Now, here are some remedies for Mars energy. Remember, Mars retrograde energy is like this too much. It feels like it's bottled up and like, frustrating. What can we do to release that in healthy ways? Exercise. Get fit. Get jiggy with it. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be dancing. It could be swimming. It could be jogging, whatever. Do some exercise. Sex. Sex is also a great way to get that excess Mars energy out of the body in a healthy way. Thumbs up there. Physical exertion, any type of physical exertion to get the frustration out of your system. You might feel like you don't have the energy for such things. Like, oh man, my legs are like lead. Well, do what you can. What gives you the joy of movement? Maybe it's a walk around the park. Maybe it's putting on your favorite music and just jigging for a bit, as much as you're able to. But do something. That is a remedy for Mars retrograde. If you're feeling lackluster or internally weak and tired, wear red clothes. Hello, Mars rules red. That's why I'm wearing red clothes. Healthy for activating a lackluster Mars energy. Eat red foods, hot foods, spicy foods. This will lift your energy and your level of assertiveness. Wear red gemstones like a garnet or a ruby or something. These things are really great, pardon me, for activating any sort of lack of mojo. If during Mars retrograde you're feeling too agitated, which is the other extreme of Mars energy, then we need to cool down our Mars. And we can do that by wearing white, wearing silver or pearl colors. So that's an activation. We could eat more green leafy vegetables and drink more fluids to douse the fire of Mars in our system. It's also good to get hypnosis or psychotherapy for healing Mars as well. And I do have a couple of practitioners at the Wellness Hub at the Guiding Star website who do work with hypnosis and psychotherapy for anyone who's feeling agitated during Mars retrograde. But now, my dear friends, we are at the all signs breakdown for this Mars retrograde period. So much to tell you. Let's dive in. Cancer, you are going first because we're mostly focusing on the energy of Mars retrograding in Cancer. Not so much Leo. He's not going to be there as long as Mars will be retrograding in Cancer. So that's where I'm putting the emphasis. We could apply it to both, but for the sake of time, we're just going to look at one for this Astro Weather Report. So remember, my Cancer friends, December 6th to February 23, this is Mars retrograde. This is where you might be feeling more frustrations due to some internalized anger. And this is likely to be expressing most of all, let's put Mars in Cancer here with you, most of all through your first house. This means, you're a warrior now. You might have a mission to encounter and a crisis to resolve in your personal life. And you might also encounter more conflict and aggression that is standing in your way to achieving what you want to achieve, Cancer, in terms of your ability to survive and thrive in the world. That's first house, our survival, our thrival. So there can be some crises regarding that. There can be maybe the need to cut something out of your life so that you can actually achieve survival and thrival. Like I said, there could be some personal conflict and aggression that comes up that stands in your way. And that could come from like anyone. Could even be internal. Could even be you causing your own self-sabotaging conflict and aggression within you as you battle out in your mind what's the best choice of action for the future for you. Buttons get pressed easily. You're more reactive to people around you, Cancer, when Mars is retrograding in the first house. There can also be some physical effects. You're feeling sexually charged and impulsive with this energy. But do you have an outlet for it that's appropriate? Some of you will, and that's great. Use it, but remember to be kind and thoughtful in your sexual encounters. Some of you might have to direct that energy more, instead of sexually, into physical activity, sports, and competing against yourself in in terms of time and things like that when you're exercising. Competing against your own personal best, not against necessarily other people. It'd be very frustrating to do so. There can be a feeling of lacklusterness, like, you want to get busy, you want to get jiggy with it, you want to get that exercise happening or that sexual energy amped up, but you might feel heavy as lead. Okay, that can be there. Also, the first house has to do with our first impressions that we give and our aura and our energy. Some of you, Cancer people, might be wanting to dress more provocatively or more sexy now. So, getting your jiggy dancy dresses and short skirts and red attire happening might be, you might be inspired to do that, and that's fantastic. Why not? It sounds like fun. Some of you might be really channeling your sporty spice and going for the Adidas or Adidas, depends where you are in the world, how you pronounce that, getting that sporty look happening instead of the sexy look. Mars rules both. Again, this is the house of the body and the physical self. Mars is to cut. We avoid surgeries and operations when Mars is in a house of the body, especially. Okay? So, what else can I tell you about this? Mars rules your 10th house and your 5th house, Cancer. And so you're going to feel like 10th house things, career, leadership roles, reputation in the world is somehow moving backwards. You thought you were in line to get that promotion. It doesn't happen. And you're like, or they postpone the announcement of the who won the job or the role or the project or whatever, and you don't find out about it until after February. It feels like it's going slow, if not slow backwards, It might feel like the 10th house area is being unraveled now, like your career is slipping through your fingers. Mars energy can be a bit like that, like something has been cut out of your life. So maybe you are cut out of a project that you really had your heart set on working on in your career, and you have to put it aside for the time being. I know of a couple of other astrologers who've been working on a really big project for years now. They keep running into hiccups and having to put it to the side and deal with it later. Sometimes that's just the way the energy goes. There's always a reason why. If you have to postpone something, if you have to wait, if you have to cut it out of your life, there is a reason. Mars is serving a purpose. You just got to trust the divine that there's a reason for that. Again, there might be a lot of competition in your career sphere at the moment. If you instigate that competition, if you instigate sort of any argy-barginess in your career environment, you are likely to lose. I remember years ago when I was sort of been doing astrology for a little while, there were two astrologers, both of them Vedic tropical astrologers, and they got into such a battle online, and they would run each other down, and it was absolutely embarrassing actually to watch. That's the kind of thing, you could be the saintliest person in the world, but if you let Mars energy get the better of you during this time, you're likely to be remembered, 10th house, long into the future as being a bit of a dick, so avoid the competition, avoid the conflict where you can. in any career field. I used astrology as an example, but it's any career field. Now, also Mars rules the 5th house as well. And this is where maybe relationships with boyfriends, girlfriends, children might feel like they're going backwards. Like life's not progressing, losing touch with the people that you love and care about. You might feel like your hobbies are not advancing. Let's say you've been learning piano for years and you're improving day after day after day. And then Mars goes retrograde, ruling the 5th house for you, Cancer. And it just feels like, oh my God, I can't play anymore and my fingers feel stiff and I've forgotten that song that I used to play so well. And, that we feel like we're going backwards with our hobbies or our interests. Maybe, you writing a book and maybe that's your hobby or your creative expression in some way, and you're writing a book and you lose a chapter. And like, oh my God, not because we're in Mercury retrograde and our devices are playing up, but because Mars retrograde, something's cut out and we lose it because we lose a chapter of our book because we lost it. Something's cut out of that chapter. We have to rewrite it and do it again, or we feel like we're going backwards or something's unraveling. We might be hitting a wall with our creative juices. Nothing's coming to us. Sorry, that line just reminded me of Back to the Future when Michael J. Fox says to Crispin Glover, George McFly, to go in and ask his mum out on a date or something, and Crispin Glover says, nothing's coming to my mind. And Marty McFly says, Jesus, George, it's a wonder I was even born. So those of you who are big fans of Back to the Future like me will remember that thing. But this is what it's like. Nothing's coming to your mind. You can't think how to get those creative juices flowing again. That's energy of Mars retrograde ruling the 5th house. Bear with it. It'll be over. It's a cycle. It will end. Instead, use this energy to strategize for the future. Okay, when my mojo comes back, when my creative juices start flowing again, this is my outline. This is my plan. I will write this chapter and then I'll write that chapter, and this is what it will generally be about. And, I'll tackle these new songs in my piano course that I'm learning. And this is what I'll do when the juices get flowing again. Don't beat yourself up. You can't help the energies. They are what they are. But just be kind to yourself, knowing that it's cyclical and the mojo will return eventually. Okay, thank you, beautiful Cancer friends. Now we're going to move to 12th house Cancer, which means Leo rising, sun or moon. Cancer is your 12th house, and that is where, hold still. That is where we are having Mars mostly retrograding, and this is occurring between the 6th of December and the 23rd of February. This is where there's going to be lots of activity going on behind the scenes. Mars will energize that hidden realm. Now, it's not going to be anything you have control over. There might be gossip or stuff you don't know about, secrets, hidden enemies, persecution, martyrdom going on that you don't have any control over or don't even know about. Just the way the energy plays out. You might win a personal war because Mars is the warrior god, but you might win it through doing some 12th house things, some research. The good news for Leo people is that Mars in the 12th house is to dissolve something. Mars can dissolve all the negative energy. 12th house can dissolve all the negative energy of Mars retrograde. So you can put your energy into doing some research that helps you win a personal battle, Mars energy. You might also win a spiritual war, a political war. Wouldn't that be nice? Or a marketing war, some kind of war you might be able to put some energy into winning now. You might dream, 12th house, dream about conflict. You might dream about aggression, bullying, violence. In fact, your subconscious battles tend to come out under this energy. Let your battles happen on that level so that you don't have to deal with them in the reality of your incarnation. Better to deal with your karma through a mental battle in your dreams than to be having to deal with it in karmic reality on the planet. So yeah, but you might dream about those things or have violent dreams and that kind of thing. Meditative walks are useful. Mars is an active energy usually, and walking can be very therapeutic. So any other spiritual exercises can be good too, such as yoga or Tai Chi, where we master and control our movements in some way. So meditative walks, yoga, Tai Chi are all Mars in the 12th house energies that can be very helpful. There might be some subconscious fears and worries that come to the surface. Don't shove them back down during Mars retrograde, because that's very unhealthy. Look at them, deal with them, maybe journal about them, do some therapy around them. Don't ignore them. They're coming up. This is part of the purpose of Mars retrograde, for you to heal. So use it. Mars also represents breakthroughs, and this Mars retrograde energy in the 12th house can give sudden breakthroughs in your spiritual or subconscious life, as I've just alluded to. And there could also be more practical breakthroughs as well, such as, you might be able to travel to a faraway place. I'll certainly be traveling during Mars retrograde, so hopefully it all goes well. You might be, dealing with a matter that might need divine intervention, like a healing. Keeping in mind, though, that sometimes these things might come with a level of angst or a level of conflict. So, if there's been a blockage to you traveling, you might be able to break through that blockage and actually have some success. If there's been a blockage to some sort of healing, you might be able to break through that during this Mars retrograde energy. But like I said, there might be a bit of argy-bargy that has to be dealt with. Deep breaths. Ancestors on the other side of the divine realm and higher beings, angels, can be actually fighting on your behalf. In that case, Leo is one of the more blessed signs during this Mars retrograde, because if the angelic beings are fighting for you, pray that they fight and win. Pray that they are supported in their battle for you. Pray that their fight gives victory here in your life. Incarnate now. Some of you might be experiencing some channelings, visions, intuitive dreams, that kind of thing, prophecies, forebodings, signs and omens that might happen through some kind of violence or upheaval. I'll give you an example, and I hope this doesn't happen, but you might be driving down the road and you hit a pelican, okay? Horrific violence. You've hit a pelican and heart's in your throat. It's terrible. Pelicans are symbolic of getting in alignment with your joy and your happiness. So there is an omen. A pelican came into your life symbolizing a certain omen and meaning, but it happened in a violent, horrible way. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. I hope that doesn't happen to anybody. Nobody wants to hit a pelican. They're so beautiful. But this is what I'm talking about. Some foreboding, something can happen that gives you some prophecy in a more cataclysmic kind of a way. Sex life can be very vivid, Leo. It can really enhance your libido, but it could be a bit erratic, full of passion and deep emotion, though. That sounds fine. Nothing wrong with that. Bring that on. Sometimes, though, the 12th house, I've heard a lot of people say the 12th house is a house of depression. I've never noticed it to be a house of depression. I think that must be because it's a very karmic house. If you experience that, it must be because there's karma around such things for you for some reason from past lives. And I would encourage you to get a regression and do therapy around that. Maybe you're depressed because you're not dealing with your past lives and past life issues as you should be. So I don't think that's one of the issues. But if you should feel depressed during the retrograde of Mars through the 12th house, I encourage you, Leo, do some therapy. Art therapy, music therapy, dance therapy, journaling, speaking to friends, get it all out and deal with anything subconscious that comes up now, as I said. Now, Mars also rules the 9th house and the 4th house. So these are two good houses. 9th house is blessing, but it could be, and of course, as I said, I'm a Leo, I'm going to be doing some overseas travel during this time. Just means, the plane might be delayed, or there might be a hold up with luggage or whatever. Knowing this, Leo, just take a backpack on board with you and don't take any check-in luggage. Knowing that there could be some issues, some problems with travel. 9th house, go prepared. Go recognizing that you need to flow with this, okay? As best you can. So realize that travel might take longer during Mars retrograde. Know that there might be some issues, feeling like things are going a bit wrong with any travel plans. Also university, if you enroll in university, there might be some hiccups and some hold-ups. If you are competing with anyone, say in international trade or anything like that, try and avoid instigating any competition or any conflict internationally. So that's ninth house. Generally speaking, you might feel like you haven't really got much purpose in life. You're a bit aimless, lacking in dharma, lacking in meaning. It's a cycle. It will pass. Don't get too hung up on that. Strategize. Think about what it is that you want to achieve with your life, what gives your life meaning, what gives your life purpose, and sit on that for a couple of months, because it will be revealed to you when Mars goes direct. Mars ruling the fourth house for Leo people, well, this can mean that themes can be moving more slowly regarding homes and fixed assets and vehicles, fourth house energy. So, you might want to sell your house, but it's not selling. You put it on the market and it's just sitting there. Hold tight, allow this retrograde motion to go work its way through, and by the end of the transit, you might find a buyer. But it might feel like it's taking forever, it's not happening. And like you're trying to sell your car, or you're wanting to, I don't know, maybe plant a new garden, but the weather's just shit and you can't seem to get into the garden to dig up all the weeds and make it happen. Like, it feels like there's blockages. Feels like things are not moving forward in fourth house realms. Just know, have some patience. It will take time. I planning on doing for my son, helping him renovate his bathroom during Mars retrograde, where Mars rules the fourth house. It's likely that my renovation of his bathroom will have to be postponed or wait, and that's okay. Not in a rush. We'll make things work until then. So Mars energy ruling the 9th and the 4th for Leo people. Okay, Virgo rising, Virgo sun, and Virgo moon people. You are going to be having Mars retrograding up here in Cancer in your 11th house. So this is happening between the 6th of December through to the 23rd of February, quite some time. This is the house of how we can be profitable and gainful. And so we can do that through Mars energy at this time, through asserting our willpower, using our willpower, not in a way that's going to be offensive, but just putting ourselves out there, perhaps more so than we usually do. Just keep in mind that oftentimes it feels like we're spinning our wheels and we don't see the results of our actions until Mars goes direct on the 23rd of February. But we can be more profitable and gainful over the next few months once Mars goes direct by getting active, taking initiative. Mars retro makes it hard to do this, but if you persevere just one foot in front of the other with endurance, thank you, Saturn trine, it will pay off in the long run. You might get the opportunity to lead big groups of people, but it's going to come with a lot of responsibility and duty. So yes, you might be a leader. Yes, you might be influencing large groups, but oh my God, it's just too much for you. Like, there's too much to juggle right now. It's heavy. Okay. We should also watch out for competition that destroys friendships. This is a time, Mars retrograde in the 11th house, where words can destroy. Somebody says something and you take it to heart, whereas at other times wouldn't matter one bit. Mars is to cut things out of our life. And here in the sign of Cancer, in your 11th house, you might be cutting some friends out or groups out, or clubs and involvement in group organizations out of your life. You might find that you're lacking some mojo for social events and social opportunities. You just, you're invited to this party or this concert and you're like, nah, I don't think I'm going to go. We might not have the energy for organizing events that we otherwise would be, there with bells on for. So lacking of enthusiasm for those social kind of activities. It might even feel like hard work or frustration to get involved in business matters, particularly business matters that have no centralized power. Like, oh, it's so hard, deciding who I'm going to buy shares from on the stock market, or my Airbnb, no centralized power there, apparently. My Airbnb, I can't be bothered running. I'm going to shut it down for a couple of months because I just haven't got the energy or the time. Something to do with the internet might just be so daunting to us we haven't got the mojo for it. So we leave our website development alone, or we ignore our thinkific, learning site. We just let it go because it feels like hard work and frustration. Some people, in the positive with this energy, Mars retrograde in the 11th house might cause some people to have a bit of a breakthrough, or have an innovation that really helps people. Some people can do very well under Mars retrograde energy. So that might happen for some people who get a solution, a light bulb moment, an aha moment. This is an Upachaya house, so once this turns direct, on the 23rd of February, once Mars turns direct, things will get better. Things will improve rapidly. Just be careful of conflict, aggression, and arguments with friends and groups and social groups as much as you can. Now, also, my beautiful Virgo friends, Mars rules the 8th house, here Aries, and the 3rd house Scorpio. So this can see things moving slowly if you've just started your own small business or a side hustle of some sort. If you're trying to generate money from your skills and talents, things don't feel like they've got enough momentum. It's not a good time to start a small business with this combination. You might even feel like you have to cut out a side hustle from your life because life is just too busy and hectic and hard, and you just can't manage to keep it juggling at this time. You might be able to take it back on when Mars goes direct on the 23rd of February, but for now you might have to cut out a side hustle or a talent or a skill or some craftsmanship that you usually enjoy. You might lack the courage for any competitive environment now, and that's probably a good thing, because if you instigate any competition you'll probably lose. So the lack of courage, because courage is seen through the 3rd house in astrology, feeling a lack of courage can just mean that you kind of twiddle your thumbs a bit, but that's okay. As I said in the introduction, this is a bit like Superman in the phone booth, not Superman flying through the air. You're getting ready. Just allow the energy to unfold. You're biding your time. Okay? Also, for Virgos, Mars rules the 8th house. So if you're expecting an inheritance of some description or some support from other people in any way, shape or form, it might not come to you until Mars retrograde is over. You might feel like you're getting nowhere in waiting for that support, or, tax return. What else can we have? Tax return, will, or inheritance, or stock return or something like that. It just might be very slow in coming, and you feel like you're getting nowhere no matter how hard you try. Do not start any sort of competitive interaction with anybody who works in spiritual fields, because you'll come off second best. This is also, you might feel like, for some of you might feel like, I've had enough with tarot, or I've had enough with astrology, and I'm done. I'm walking away from this. That's okay. Some people will feel like that. Not everybody. And of course, understanding these things is not for everybody. So maybe you've been learning astrology or trying to understand tarot, and you're just at a point where I had a gutful of not being able to get this. Give it some time. Walk away. Have a break, knowing that once Mars goes direct, it might all gel for you then. Just cut yourself some slack under this energy. 8th house kind of influence. Thank you, Virgo. Okay, my lovely Librans. This energy of Mars retrograde in Cancer is occurring in the 10th house, and this is happening between the 6th of December through to the 23rd of February next year. So this is influencing your 10th house, plus it's also influencing the houses Mars rules. I'll talk about that in a minute. You might feel a loss of mojo with your career at this time. You might feel over this period that your ambition and drive have just evaporated. You got no energy for that. Maybe you're juggling a lot of things, or maybe your focus is elsewhere, or you just don't feel enthusiastic about your career, the legacy you want to leave any longer. Know that this is a cycle. It's not going to last forever. Maybe just put it to the side for the time being. Just do what you have to, knowing that once Mars goes direct, the energy will return. The ambition and the drive will come back. Don't beat yourself up if it's lacking during this particular retrograde phase. There might be a lot of competition that you encounter in your career. You might feel like there's people up against you. I just want to point out, do not instigate this competition. Let others instigate it against you, knowing they will lose. If you instigate competition during Mars retrograde, you will not win. So let everybody else do that. You just keep on keeping on, one foot in front of the other. You've got Saturn making a trine to Mars, helping you to endure and persevere, and just keep working diligently away at what you need to do, knowing it will all come out in the wash anyway. Some people during Mars retrograde in their 10th house might leave a career because Mars is to cut, to sever something. Some people might leave a career, but if that's the case, it's probably been long overdue and you're well and truly ready to go. I would just encourage you, if that is on the cards, please be sure to have something to go to. I don't want anybody who watches my videos to be hung out to dry and then not be able to provide for their life after, making a break. Mars is also to have a breakthrough. Now, some of you, if you've been stuck in a difficult career situation, might have a breakthrough regarding your career and sort of an aha light bulb moment. You might have to strategize whatever changes you're going to make over time once Mars goes direct again, but the aha epiphany moment might come during Mars retrograde. Watch your words now with your bosses and authority figures. They should also be watching their words with you as well. Make sure that you don't sort of stir the pot or poke the bear, as they say, at this time during Mars retrograde. Sometimes it can be a bit angsty when we have Mars retrograding in the 10th house, angsty with authority figures. We want to sort of fly under the radar in that regard where possible. You might also find that during this Mars retrograde phase, people might be observing your sexuality in some way. Why is that? Well, maybe you go out to dance at a nightclub one night. And you don't realize it, but somebody's watching you because of your sexy moves. You're just having fun. You're not intentionalizing any of this. But the 10th house is how the world sees us. And we don't intend to be seen in a sexualized way, but Mars retrograding in the 10th house can make us seen in that sexualized way. Maybe we dress to give a speech and somebody perceives it as being a bit sexy. You might be buttoned up to the collar and somebody might think that's a real turn on. So the perception of the world out there is a more sexualized perception when Mars is retrograding, okay? Don't let it bother you. That's their concern. That's their issue, not yours. You just live your life, But I'm just letting you know what these energies can bring about. Be careful, though, of it developing a reputation for antagonism during Mars retrograde, because Mars retrograde can be has that pushing buttons kind of feeling to it. And that's why I said watch your words with bosses and authority figures. You don't want to develop a reputation of antagonism that you've then got to live with when Mars goes direct. So be very conscious and aware of what you say, how you act, where you go, all that sort of thing out there in the world, because Mars retrograde energy is very visible in the 10th house. You might find that authority figures are more pushy and provoking and competitive or in conflict with you at this time. Okay, Libra, you're not a competitive, conflicting kind of a personality, but this energy of Mars is. And you mightn't be seeking it, but you might be getting it. If that's the case, be as gracious and diplomatic as you are well and truly able to be, Libra, and know that this energy will pass when Mars turns direct in February. We might feel a very frustrated energy regarding our responsibilities and our social obligations now. Might be just all too much, too overwhelming, and we're feeling heavy with it. Know, again, that it's just an energy and it will pass. Now, Mars in your chart, Libra, rules the 2nd house. It might feel like finances are moving slowly. Like you just got too many financial obligations that are sucking the life out of you, so to speak. No, it will pass. You'll get things back on track once Mars goes direct. You might have to cut something out of your life to do with 2nd house things. Maybe you've been collecting shoes for ages and, finances become a bit tight perhaps, and so you've got to stop collecting shoes. Cut that out of your life. You might even have to give some of your shoes away for some reason. Whatever you collect, I'm using that as an example. But 2nd house is what we collect, what we keep, what we hoard, what we store, and there might be a need to cut something like that out of your life. You might need to cut out a bank account. Maybe you've got too many and you're just juggling money left, right and center. You might need to streamline things a bit more now and be more strategic with your money and the use of money. You might feel like you're going backwards with regard to your self-worth and self-value too. 2nd house is how we value ourselves. And you've been working hard, let's say Libra, on self-love and self-worth, and something happens and you just have a real collapse, if you like, of that. So just again remind you, Mars will be direct in February. You'll get it all back then, but just process. Why have you gone backwards with your self-love work during this time? You probably will be able to do some deep psychological analysis that will help you in the future. Mars also rules the 7th house for a Leo person, and a Libra person, and I do feel that there might be some difficulties with relationship because of that. 7th house Lord. There might even be relationship difficulties that are very visible for everybody to see in some way, Libra. Might be some arguments with a spouse, or feel like the relationship isn't progressing like you want it to. Some of you Librans might even feel like a relationship of some sort, maybe a business partnership or a client or even a spouse might be being cut out of your life for some reason. If that's the case, try and be as patient and diplomatic as you can. Mars will be trining Saturn, so that's a help there to help you be patient and diplomatic, knowing that once Mars goes direct, you can move forward with your relationship again. But it might give you the opportunity to address sort of some hidden anger, some internalized frustration that you're carrying. So use it to the good, Libra, to make sure you address those issues, those problems, those hurts and wounds that might be present in a relationship that you have sort of swept under the rug, so that it doesn't end up being cut out of your life. That's if you want to keep the relationship. You might be at a point where you're like, that's it, I'm done, cut it out. I'm gone. That can happen for some people too. But certainly the progress of a relationship or a partnership or even a contract or some sort of agreement might be moving slowly. So maybe you're setting up to sign a lease agreement or something like that, and it's just taking forever. Mars retrograde in the 7th house of agreements can bring that sort of thing about with any kind of contractual situation. It just feels like it's going nowhere. Try and persevere, try and endure. No, it will end. It's just a cycle. Thank you, lovely Librans. Alrighty, Scorpio rising, Scorpio sun, Scorpio moon people. Mars is retrograding in your 9th house between the 6th of December to February the 23rd. Be careful if you're traveling to other countries because accidents and mishaps can manifest. I was talking about this for Leo people as well. Instead of, having a massive check-in bag, try and just travel light and take a backpack so that you don't lose your luggage or something, because this Mars retrograde in the 9th house is an energy of mishaps and things perhaps going a little bit wrong. Don't want that. You might have a real insatiable hunger to travel. There's a restless energy here, but there might be some restrictions and blockages to being able to do so. You want to book a ticket, but there's no room on the plane, or, it could even be localized travel. Mostly it's international, but it could even be localized. You want to go to a nearby town to go and eat at their fancy restaurant, but it's all booked out. And there's a frustrated energy here with being able to travel and enjoy other cultures. There might be some sudden competitive or argumentative experiences that are had with a father figure. This is in Vedic astrology, the house of the father figure. And you don't want to clash heads with a father figure in your life, especially if it's not a usual scenario for you. So you can tone this down through playing sports or doing some sort of competitive game with a father figure instead, Play tennis or play poker or something like that with your dad or a father figure, and it'll be directing the energy in a much more beneficial way. You might find that during the retrograde of Mars to the 9th house, people are trying to force their beliefs onto you, being pushy, being belligerent, dogmatic. We've all encountered those sorts of people. They drive us up the wall. Well, okay, you're going to probably come across it at some point, Scorpio. Forewarned, forearmed here. You'll know, okay, I'll be kind, I'll be gracious. I won't cause a fight nor an argument, but I will be assertive and just tell them, sorry, not interested. Please go away. But just be aware that might happen. You may be far more blunt as well, Scorpio, and have less time for bullshit in your life. Mars retrograding in the 9th house. Okay, so remember, watch your words and keep things as gracious as you're able to, even if you're more inclined to go the other way. There might be some frustrations over a religious battle. I mean, look at what's happening in the world. You might get really angsty about all of that. And you might really even decide to take some action to uphold your beliefs now, especially your beliefs about what's happening in foreign countries. Nothing wrong with that. Sometimes there's a time and a place for enacting the war god in superhero ways. So, Scorpio has very good discretion. Use that now. Some of you might have a sexual encounter with a foreign person, or maybe you're on holidays in a faraway land and you get an opportunity to have some fun of that nature. Mars is our passion and desire, and here in the house of foreign places, Mars retrograde can bring that about. Or if you're traveling to foreign lands with a partner, you might have a really good time in the bedroom over there. What else can happen is that you can have sudden eureka moments, ahas, epiphanies, deep understandings, and breakthrough energy. Mars is breakthrough energies that come after trying to sort out a difficulty, because this retrograde energy is about challenges and difficulties that need to be overcome. But once you have, it's like this is the house of breakthroughs. This is the house of good fortune and luck. Well, light bulb, woof, it all makes sense. Things fall into place. The jigsaw puzzle works out. You understand better once you push through the problem. Some of you might be experiencing some court cases or legal problems while Mars is retrograding. I just encourage you, do not instigate them. But if somebody does instigate them against you, know that you are more likely to win when Mars is retrograding and you are not the instigator. Now, also Scorpio, Mars is ruling the 6th house and the 1st house. This will have an impact on your physical health and well-being, because both 6th and 1st houses have to do with the physical body and health and well-being. So maybe you started an exercise program and you jump on the scales, nothing's happened. You've been doing this exercise program for 8 weeks and oh my God, nothing, not a kilo has been lost. And you're frustrated, okay? It just feels like nothing's happening. Feels like you're going backwards. I want to encourage you, activate this trine from Saturn, persevere and endure. You will notice a difference when Mars goes direct on the 23rd, or around the 23rd of February. So you might feel like you're going backwards with health, exercise, nutrition, something to do with your personal image or physicality or healing an illness. Know that the change will come. This is a cycle, okay? Some of you might be cutting out something unhealthy from your life that was not serving you. So it might have been a certain something that you ate and had in your diet. It could have been a certain practice that turned out to be very unhealthy for you to do. It's easier to cut that out. You can use it to your advantage. You can cut that out of your life. Maybe you kept eating, too many apples or something like that, and it's like, okay, now I'm not going to eat any more apples. You can really kind of have a breakthrough, if you like, during Mars retrograde with some physical health concern, physical health addiction that can happen, especially once Mars turns direct in this area once he's been going retrograde. So physical health is really where a lot of the focus for momentum going forward after February will be. But you're going to work things out now. Like I said, you're in that Superman in the phone booth phase, not out there flying to the rescue. It's about getting ready, getting the garments on to deal with the problem, which will be done after Mars goes direct. So this is a time for strategizing what you're going to do once you've found out what the problem is with that health concern or that physical issue. That's what I'm saying for Scorpio rising, Scorpio sun, and Scorpio moon. Sagittarius rising, Sagittarius sun, Sagittarius moon people. Well, you guys, Mars is retrograding in Cancer, which happens to be in your 8th house. Very important house of the horoscope, the 8th house. This is happening between December the 6th to February the 23rd. There will be big transformations that you're wanting to see happen. This is a house of fast transformations, but Mars is retrograde here, so it probably makes you feel like these transformations that you can see coming, that you want to happen, are dragging. You want a big reversal in life, but it's just not manifesting yet. For example, there might be some sort of inheritance that is about to come to you, but there's a legal holdup. There's some, dotted lines that have to be signed that weren't dealt with, and now it's going to take a couple of months and blah, blah, blah. The transformations, the big life's big reversals, they're coming. They are, but there's a waiting game. Mars retrograde here in the 8th house. This is a house of crisis experiences. Now, extremes in life might trigger your fearlessness and your warrior nature, but it comes because you're under the pump, under a lot of stress. There's a crisis. So, okay, be prepared, forewarned, forearmed. You've got what it takes, Sagittarius, to deal with crisis and difficulty, but it's going to come because there is a crisis and difficulty to deal with. You might not have the energy that you would usually have to put into digging deep and discovering secrets. Maybe you're too busy to do the research you need to about things. Maybe you're just burnt out and you haven't got what it takes to really find out the truth that you need to know. And by research, I mean, it could be anything. It could be researching into conspiracy theories, or it could be researching into which is the best washing machine to buy. You just don't have the energy to go digging deep right now. So you just buy the first washing machine that you see. I'd avoid buying appliances during Mars retrograde, in all honesty, but it's not Mercury retrograde. Take it with a grain of salt, what I'm saying. But if you can postpone, do. Okay, you might encounter a crisis healer. It could be a midwife or a shaman or a counselor or a regressionist, maybe a surgeon. Somebody who's a crisis healer might trigger your aggression now, make you feeling very irritated, very frustrated. There's some awakenings and breakthroughs that can also happen though here, but they'll usually come after some type of difficulty that you need to solve. Mars is a problem solver. Mars also wants you to awaken quickly, but the retrograde motion frustrates that quick awakening. It will come after the 23rd of February, absolutely, but there's going to be a problem to solve in the meantime. And once you solve it, kaboom, all sorted, all over Red Rover. And the transformation happens fast. Do be careful of accidents, okay? Be very cautious when you're driving. Be very cautious in any kind of what would be considered more dangerous circumstances. Balance your life now by directing this Mars retrograde energy into something good, something useful. Like look at astrology, do a deep dive into the occult, get an acupuncture session, or even read some sort of thriller or a crime novel. Simply doing that can actually direct this energy into positive outcomes so you don't suffer all the other things that I've been talking about here. Now, there could be fights with your partner regarding mutual resources, or fights with a partner over inheritances right now, okay? Mars is conflict. Don't instigate it if you can help it. If your partner does, so be it. That's on their head. But if you don't instigate it, you'll be the one to come off the winner. David's a Sagittarius rising. I hope we don't fight over our mutual resources. Forewarned, forearmed. When you know, you know. Now, if you're in any position where you are managing other people's finances or money, know that there could be some conflict or aggression over how you're managing other people's finances or other people's resources or money, okay? So forewarned, forearmed there as well. Now, this is a house of sex. One of you might, you or a partner might be feeling some sort of sexual frustration that comes bursting out now. Talk things out where you can. Resolve any sort of sexual issues in amiable ways when you're both in clarity of mind and in a peaceful state, rather than when you're all agitated. Deal with any sexual frustrations. If you're a single person, any sexual frustrations, deal with them. Like go and see a counselor. Do some therapy around any of those issues, or any past earlier in this life kind of sexual hang-ups that you've got. Use this energy to do therapy around that, to resolve those inner tensions. This is actually your friend, this energy, for dealing with a lot of that stuff from the past and getting rid of it, cutting it out of your life. Mars is to cut. Therapy will help you cut those like traumas and sexual wounds out of your life. You can also resolve inner tension by helping other people who are going through a crisis. And believe me, there's plenty of people in the world going through a crisis right now. So Sagittarius, get your compassion on, start helping, however you can. I'm not saying, you've got to get out there rebuilding homes in North Carolina for people, but what can you do? Can you raise money? Can you send, clothing? What can you do to help? This is a time when you can utilize this energy to bless others in some way. This is the house of surgery. My last thing I want to say about Mars retrograde in Cancer is avoid surgery. Just don't go there if you can help it. Postpone it, put it off, reschedule it. It's not a good placement. Mars also in a Sagittarius chart rules the 5th house, lucky house here, and the 12th house, Scorpio. So this is where things might be moving a bit more slowly, going backwards, and where you might be cutting something out of your life. For some Sagittarius people, you might reach a limit with a child and say, that's it. That's relationship with you is unraveled. Got to end. Cutting it out. I'm done. It could look like that with a boyfriend or a girlfriend as well, because this is the house of lovers. So you might be ending something with a lover under Mars retrograde as well. You might feel like you're going backwards with some hobby, some interest. You've been learning piano and practicing, and then something happens and, you haven't been able to touch the piano for 3 weeks and, back to square one again. I've forgotten everything I learned. So some hobby, something that brought you joy might have a bit of a backward step or feel like it's moving slower in its progress. 5th house energy. Our joy might be a bit harder to find too than usual, Sagittarius. It is a cycle. It will pass. By February, you'll be back on track again. Mars ruling the 5th house of our joy might be a bit harder to find. Mars also rules the 12th house. And so you might feel like if you're living overseas or if you're exploring things overseas or in faraway places, that things aren't quite working out well or a bit frustrated right now. The 12th house is faraway places and other cultures as well. Your spiritual life, when we pray and we just feel like, is there even a God? Did anyone hear me up there? We might feel like there's a block, like a brass ceiling, and our prayers can't get past it. There's feelings like we're going backwards spiritually, like our spiritual growth is inhibited in some way. That can also happen. One thing, though, that is more in the positive, Sagittarius, and something that you probably need to lean on in terms of faith and belief, which are 12th house things, is the belief and the faith that the divine energies, your ancestors, your guides who watch over you, are actually fighting for you. So if your prayers and your spiritual life is struggling, just know that there may be a battle going on, a battle royale up in the heavenly realms on your behalf, So bide your time, twiddle your thumbs, knowing that the divine probably has got your back and is fighting for you right now. You may not see the results until Mars goes direct in February. So there might be a loss of mojo around spirituality, but the divine is probably fighting for you. That's what I'm feeling into for our beautiful Sagittarius rising, sun or moon people. Capricorn rising, sun or moon people. Well, my friends, you are having Mars retrograding in your 7th house. It's a very important house. It's an angular house, and this is happening between the 6th of December through to the 23rd of February. Well, for Capricorns, you might be going through a rather difficult time because you might be attracting aggression and arguments from other people. Now, you might be pulling that in because this is the house of what we draw in from others, and Mars retrograde is anger and frustration and passive-aggressive behavior. Some people who have this might be actually giving that to other people. Okay, so yes, you can be attracting it, but you also might be interacting with other people that way. Forearmed, be careful of your karma in that regard. Some of you might be attracting, in the more positive, some passion from other people. Use this energy, I would suggest, in the positive to fight for others, not with others, to fight for others. There's a battle going on in the world now for righteousness, 100%. And I just encourage you, get on board with that. Use this energy to fight for the good, to fight for righteousness, to prevail, fairness, justice, equality, harmony for all. My God, we really need people to start standing up against the schoolyard bullies, I'll just say. Capricorn, this could be your role, and this is actually a good way to use this energy. Now, you might be bargaining with other people, Mars retrograde in the 7th house, or you might be traveling for business purposes as well with this energy too. There can be some difficult situations that your partner or spouse, business partner as well, might be experiencing. They might be caught in some sort of battle or fight or frustration. And that could be with you, or it could be that they're fighting with somebody else. They might need a little bit of space or breathing room from you if they're fighting with you, or they might need your love and support, Capricorn, if they're fighting a battle out there in the world right now. There could be some erraticism in relationships as well. It's all great one day and it's hitting the fan the next, okay? That Mars is a little bit wild. Remember, he's out of bounds. There could be some harmful and very impulsive words that come between you and a partner. Passions rise, self-control is hard to find, and again, feeling like you go backwards in relationships. Know that once Mars moves direct in February, late February, you're going to be able to set things to right again. So don't throw the baby out with the basket, or the bath water, I should say. Instead, give yourself some space. You know, maybe this is a chance for you to go take a bit of a holiday and a break from one another. Go live with a girlfriend for a couple of weeks and put some space between you. You know, make sure you've got things well communicated. I'm taking some time out because Mars is retrograde and it's just causing too much stress on our relationship. So let's have a breather. The relationship isn't over, but we're just having some time apart. That would be a good approach if you can do that. For some of you, though, Mars going retrograde in the 7th house might indicate that a relationship will end. Mars is to cut things out, and you'll know because the relationship would have been shit for ages, and it'll be just time to say, oh, time to go. Had enough, can't do this anymore. Some of you might find that your relationship goes through some sort of a breakthrough. And it's enabled, it's enhanced, it's activated because you have an aha, an epiphany, new momentum, because Mars can bring that about too. Care for your partners, watch out for your partners, make sure your partners are safe because this is an energy of accidents or mishaps, Capricorn. So, make sure that they are not, I don't know, doing something stupid with a chainsaw or climbing on the roof or something like that. Make sure that your partners are taking every safety precaution where possible. We might also have a tendency to pursue what we want in business or in relationships for that matter too, very aggressively under Mars retrograde influence. And that can have serious repercussions down the track, especially after Mars goes direct. People will remember you were ruthless and you were stomping all over everybody to get what you want. Don't go there. It's not worth it in the long run. What you feel that you desire in a relationship or in business might feel blocked or restricted. That is okay. It's perhaps time to revisit, re-strategize, look over the contract, look over the agreement, analyze what's going on in your relationship, and then activate it. Then take action around it when Mars goes direct. Use this as a strategy time, as a preparation time where you can. Now, you might get a bit angry, Capricorn, with the public or your clients. Maybe they push your buttons, maybe they piss you off. Try to act with consciousness and awareness now so you don't sort of drive people away from your business. If you feel like you've lost your mojo, Capricorn, and there's a lot of disagreements and, no energy to put into sort of business deals or keeping your promises and that sort of thing. If you feel that way, remind yourself this is a cycle. It will not last. By February, everything's going to be okay again. There can be a lot of court cases and legal problems as well. Don't instigate them, Capricorn. If they come to you, they come to you. You'll just have to deal with them. But don't you be the one to start it. You will lose. Mars in one of the litigation houses. Now, Mars also rules the 11th house, Scorpio, and the 4th house, Aries. So this is where things can be moving a bit slowly, feeling like you're going backwards, feeling like something's being cut out of your life or something is unraveling. 11th house is friends. Some of you might feel like you're losing some friendships, like the friendships that you had are sort of being cut away, feeling like the friendships in your life aren't progressing. It can be a bit frustrating. Maybe you're part of a social group or a club or an organization, and you go into the meeting, the annual general meeting or something like that, and you just met with like tumbleweeds and stony cold silence and something's not right. Mars energy can give sort of group organizations and events and things like that feeling of coldness, that feeling of, even though Mars is fire, it can be like something's being cut out of your life, and your involvement with those groups might be thwarted in some way. You might feel very competitive with a friend, and that might be something new and out of the blue. If you instigate some competition or animosity with a friend, you will come off second best. So forewarned, forearmed, Capricorn, don't be the one to push the button. You might feel like you're trying to build a friendship or create a new friendship and everything's falling apart. It doesn't happen. It's not moving. It's like you're running on the hamster wheel and getting nowhere with the friendships you're trying to develop, or the goals or dreams you're trying to realize as well. 11th house. You might be sort of running and getting nowhere with your goals and dreams. Again, you've got Mars being activated by a trine from Saturn. Persevere, endure. The good will come for the work you've done by February. So hang in there with your goals and your dreams. Mars also rules for Capricorn people the 4th house. There might be a bit of domestic upheaval. There might be a bit of conflict in the home, not seeing eye to eye with somebody, children, parents, that kind of thing. You might feel like you're moving backwards with the development of a garden or the sale of a house or the sale of a car or something. You might even feel like your ability to maybe have more than one property or do a renovation on a property or something like that is going backwards, and you're losing time, you're losing money. It can be really irritating, but know that it is a cycle, and that when Mars goes direct in February, everything will start to gel again regarding those 4th house things. Thank you, Capricorn. Aquarius rising, Aquarius sun, or Aquarius moon people. Alrighty, my friends. Well, Mars is in the 6th house and will be retrograding there between the 6th of December through to the 23rd of February. And so this is actually not as bad as you might think, because Mars is a malefic planet here retrograding in a malefic house. 2 negatives in astrology make a positive. You might feel like you're going backwards, but you actually have got this. You can actually heal 6th house things. You have the perseverance, I think, to know that you can sort this out and win in the end. So even though you feel like you're going backwards, even though there might be some negative energy that arises, conflicts, accidents, frustrations, health issues that come up, you're going to be able to strategize a way around them and find a solution. Mars is a problem solver, and he really does best in the 6th house, where he can solve the problems of life. So you absolutely do have this. Check out my mentioning of remedies for a retrograde Mars in the introduction if you want some ideas for how to navigate this well. Now, if you're an employer, you might find that your employees are a bit more aggressive, a bit more erratic. It might be the cause of more stress in your life. So forewarned there. You will be, Mars can be very logical in the 6th house and quite fearless in dealing with troubles and adversities. So that's something that you can utilize. Flex that muscle. That's actually an advantage. It's a good idea to put what energy you have into your health and well-being. If you overdo it, you might cause an accident. On the flip side, you might just be feeling so heavy like lead that you just don't have what it takes. Just do what you can. If you establish like a routine now while Mars is retrograde, it can stick with you for the long term, but it might be very, very hard to push through and establish it. Getting up a half an hour earlier to go for a walk might just feel like hell on earth. But I encourage you, put energy into your health and well-being, and you won't regret it in the long run. There is a karmic responsibility to serve here in the 6th house. This is also the house of karma we need to burn. And you might be having to put great physical energy into serving, helping, healing other people right now. But it's the right place to direct this energy. Help people, heal people, fight for people for a righteous cause. Don't instigate the fight, but get in there with a fight that's been ongoing. There's plenty of those around the world that you can get on board with to help resolve right now. Use that, because in doing so, you will be burning your karma. Great thing to do. You can be very mobilized by injustice and humanitarian difficulties too under this energy. Be careful, Aquarius, of hot, spicy foods. They might play havoc with your digestion. During this time, I'd really focus on drinking more water and eating lots of leafy greens and that kind of thing that are cooling kind of energies as well. Some of you Aquarius people might encounter more court cases and legal problems. Know that the energy will pass when Mars turns direct in February. Now, also, Mars in an Aquarius chart rules the 10th house and the 3rd house, which is Aries and Scorpio. And so this is where things might be moving slowly in your life. You might have been trying to make some progress in your career, make things happen, get a promotion, and it just doesn't happen. That maybe they postpone the announcement of who got the job at work, and you have to wait months before you hear the answer. Maybe it feels like you're going backwards with regard to progress in whatever career realm you work in, and you've been trying and putting efforts into it and trying to make things happen, and nothing happens. So you can even feel like a career's been cut out of your life now. Know that it will pass. If you can persevere, if you can endure, the energy will right itself once Mars goes direct. This is a time of preparation and strategy. Okay, maybe you're not happy with your career and where you're at right now, and you want to redirect. use this time to plan, to strategize, to sort of work out, okay, well, I don't like my career. I want to leave that field of work and I want to move into this field of work. I'm going to take my time about this. What training do I need? What new qualifications might I want? What refinements do I need to make to my resume or my CV? You start doing the preparation work while Mars is retrograde. You'll be so ready to make the move when Mars goes direct regarding your career. Third house, kind of similar. You might feel this is a house of small business and making money from your own skills and talents, maybe doing a side hustle. It might feel like you're getting nowhere with those sorts of things and those sorts of plans. You might feel like mentally you're frustrated right now. You're feeling like an energy of inner agitation, and that's, you keep going down the rabbit hole of anger with the way the world is, and you're mentally thinking irritating thoughts all the time. Well, this is something that you can use Mars energy to address. Maybe you can cut out that frustrated energy through practicing some sort of like strategizing, planning, preparing Mars retrograde. Read a wonderful book called The Happiness Trap to help realign your mind during Mars retrograde, away from issues of anger and frustration and internal shitty inner dialogues and that kind of thing. Use this time to recalibrate your mind. And then when Mars goes direct in February, your mind will be right on track. Use this time to look at your small business or your side hustle and say, well, what can I improve? How can I change? What do I need to tweak? Instead of putting energy in and feeling like you're getting nowhere, think about how can you problem solve? How can you change the situation? Yes, things might be moving slowly. Know that that's just a cycle. It will end in February, and then you'll be back on track in a much more refined way once Mars has finished retrograding in Cancer, but ruling your third house. Thank you so much, my beautiful Aquarius friends. Now, Pisces rising, sun or moon people. Mars is very important in a Pisces chart because it's your planet of prosperity for a Pisces person, because it rules the 2nd and the 9th. But Mars is retrograding in the 5th house. So all good houses for Pisces people, but Mars is a difficult energy when he's retrograding. There might be some sparks and fireworks sexually, but also arguments and frustrations with your lovers, or arguments and frustrations with your children. Butting heads with children can happen when Mars is retrograding in the 6th house. Forewarned, forearmed. I would also suggest to avoid competitive performance situations, like going in a competition. When I was growing up, we used to have something in our town called an Stedford. It was the most frustrating thing on earth. Oh God, I hated it. But every child in town who had music lessons or who could sing went in this competition. The judges were always old and old farts who had old fart taste. And, usually people who were a bit hoity-toity ended up winning these things. It was shit. And, I just use that as an illustration to say, don't even get involved. Competition does nothing. Competition in entertainment industries or artistic industries, it's fucked. It is all subjective. It's all based on somebody's opinion, not the actual quality of the art or the performance. It's based on a personal opinion. So in that, and this is a house, 5th house, a house of artistic expression, a house of creative intelligence. Forget competition. You will just end up feeling like I do about competitive situations. It is a load of horse dung. There can be, aside from that, there can be a lack of energy for spending time with your kids. You might love spending time with your kids and it's really important to you, but you're so busy with work or your health is compromised, so you don't have the time or the availability to spend time with your children like you might want to do. That can be another expression of retrograde Mars in the 5th house. You can also have less enthusiasm for games and fun and parties and dressing up for a good time. I've got to admit, I went through a bit of a phase. I love dressing up, but I went through a phase after David and my wedding earlier in the year where I was so burnt out from all that was involved in the wedding. And I was like, my birthday came next a couple of months later. And I was like, I just can't. Usually I'd have a cocktail party and dress up and have fun. I was like, oh, no. And this is Mars in the fifth house energy, you know, ordinarily you might, you know, get your jiggy on for Christmas parties and all that good stuff. And here, Mars in the fifth house, Pisces, you might be like, whatever, just give me my jeans and a t-shirt. I can't be bothered, you know. Less enthusiasm for the joys of life. Very sad. Very sad for Pisces people this Christmas. You might be very erratic also with your creative endeavors. This is a house of hobbies. Ordinarily, you know, you might get the sewing machine out and whip up a dress in a day. Trying to do that now with Mars retrograde in the fifth house, it might take you weeks to finish that dress because you're more erratic with your creative endeavors and things have got the go slows regarding fifth house things. I'd also suggest, Pisces, be very conscious and protective of your heart. This means, you know, metaphorically, you know, guard your heart from any nasty pasties out there, but also look after your hearts. For some people, this can be a time when they experience some heart issues, heart palpitations and that kind of thing. Don't overdo it. Don't, you know, just in terms of exercise or, you know, putting energy into things, be steady, be reasonable, you know, so that you care for your heart. Watch what you eat, all that kind of stuff. Don't agitate your heart if you can avoid it. Okay. And also for Pisces people, Mars rules the 9th and the 2nd house. And I am reminded, like this is the second time that I am seeing something influencing my 9th house with this Mars retrograde. And I am going to be traveling during Mars retrograde. Actually, I should be home just prior to Mars retrograde. So hopefully I will avoid a lot of the issues. But basically, when Mars retrogrades, things move more slowly. Things move, feel like they're going backwards. So if you're going traveling, you know, make sure you tag everything well and have your travel insurance because you might lose some luggage or there might be an issue with a ticket or a visa or a passport or something because Mars retrograding causes blockages and things going backwards in the house of travel. Also a university application or some higher learning that you wanted to do might just feel like it's taking ages, or you know, you've signed up for the Royal Stars Academy, for example. Lo and behold, you know, you're halfway through the first level and you're speeding along and then Mars goes retrograde and all of a sudden you can't touch the Royal Stars Academy course for, you know, weeks on end. Things go slowly. Things feel like they're going backwards. Don't worry about it because by the time February 23rd arrives, you're going to be ready to go again. This is a time, as I've said, of preparation for the future. This is Superman in the phone box, not Superman flying through the air to rescue Lois Lane. Okay, so it's about getting ready. So do some research now. Do some, you know, okay, let's say you're studying the Royal Stars Academy, higher level knowledge, 9th house stuff, getting certified. Let's say you're studying the Royal Stars Academy and, you know, you haven't got time to do the course, but maybe you've got a long haul flight where you're sitting around because, hey, there's been a hold up with your plane. You maybe have an astrology book by your side so you can do some research and maybe get prepped for the Royal Stars Academy work that you'll be doing. You know, use this energy to prepare rather than to get frustrated where you can. Now also Pisces, Mars rules your 2nd house, so this can just mean it could feel like, you know, the ability to save money or to save and store anything, you know, storing fruit in the Vacola, you know, that might be a little bit harder to achieve. You know, you haven't got time to be stewing that fruit, or you haven't got time to be you know, concentrating on the collection that you've accumulated. You might be just feeling like you're going backwards with 2nd house things. You might feel even like, you know, something's being cut out of your life regarding what you have, your possessions, your stuff. Maybe you have to sell some stuff to pay off a debt. Maybe you have to, make some changes and re-strategize your budget during Mars retrograding in the 5th house, Pisces. So do so. Use this time to organize yourself for the future when Mars goes direct and is moving well through the horoscope. I would just also suggest, Pisces, it's good to have a bit of a rainy day bank account for times like this when the 2nd house Lord is retrograding, and that way you know you're covered. You'll be able to meet your bills and obligations and that kind of thing, and have the money as a backup. So storing money in non-Mars retrograde times for Pisces people are very, very good idea for these times when Mars goes retrograde, okay? Some of you, I've talked about things being cut from your life. Maybe earning money just feels like it's coming in slower, you know. This is me, I'm a Pisces person. I might just get 0 orders until February, which could really suck and be very difficult and make life really hard. But, you know, money, second house, that could be what goes on. Forewarned, forearmed, Pisces, prep for the future and know that it will change. It's all cyclical. It will change come February the 23rd. Okay, thank you, Pisces. Moving along to Aries. Aries rising, Aries sun, Aries moon people. Well, Mars is retrograding for Aries people in the 4th house. And this means that there might be a feeling of restraint on you emotionally. You can't speak your truth. You can't share what's really on your heart and what's really on your mind. That can cause anger issues, defensiveness. It can be very difficult, Mars retrograding in the 4th house. It's also part of a Kuja dosha, which is where we're arguing with maybe a business partner or a spouse or erratic partners, or we're feeling like people in our lives are aggressive or bossy or frustrating. Because you know something, when Mars is in the 4th house, he is making Vedic aspect to our relationship axis, particularly the 7th house. So partners, this is why it's a Kuja dosha. So there might be some fighting going on for Aries people with, if it's not your current business partner or marriage partner, it could be a former partner. It could be somebody you're arguing with over a divorce or something like that, where there's a lot of argy-bargy, okay? So you might feel like partners are being aggressive or bossy or frustrating, or you might be being that way to a partner yourself. Be careful of accidents in the home, my Aries friends, especially accidents to do with Mars, things like fire, knives, electrical appliances, malfunctions of electrical equipment and so on. Be careful. There's not a time to purchase a new washing machine, okay? You might find that you get an opportunity, Aries, to sell or renovate a home. In fact, if you are renovating, it will direct the energy away from negative things like crime in the home or accidents in the home. You could install a fireplace. I installed a fireplace last time Mars was retrograde. I was doing the research and gathering quotes, and as soon as Mars went direct, I was able to get the builder to come and put the fireplace in. Best thing I ever did. It's absolutely lovely. So that's an idea for how you can direct the energy to your advantage. Can't do that every time Mars is retrograding. Of course, you only need one fireplace mostly, but Mars retrograding in the 4th house is a great time for doing that sort of work. You might feel very protective of your family. You might be fighting for your family, yet at the same time, there might be an energy of wanting to break away from the family in some way, or the influence of your family in some way. It might just all feel a bit too much while Mars is retrograding. You might be wanting more space in your home during Mars retrograde. It might give you, time to prep and look at, okay, well, if I did an extension, how much would it cost? What are the builders quoting me? What would it look like? Blah, blah, blah. You can do some research and prep work regarding creating more space in the home if that's the feeling and the momentum that you're getting. Some people, when Mars is retrograding in the 4th house, might suddenly decide to get nipple rings or piercings on their body. Interesting, isn't it? Especially in Cancer, which rules the breasts. Mars is to pierce things, and it's interesting that the 4th house can trigger that sort of thing. There can be increased levels of depression. Mars is 4th house is a house connected to how the mind is working and the emotions. So very important to be forearmed about that and have some strategies for dealing with depression. I mentioned before there's a book called The Happiness Trap, which I found very helpful when I was going through a really low point in my life. It might be worth a visit to that book or other books that are recommended to you on such topics. Also, this is the house of vehicles. I encourage you, Aries, do not buy a vehicle when Mars is retrograding in the 4th house. You will have accidents with it. You will have trouble with it. It will be a problem. Don't shift to a new residence while Mars is retrograde. Do the prep work. Perhaps look at selling your house and buying a new one and doing the research and getting things ready, but don't take action until Mars goes direct on the 23rd of February. Now also, Aries, Mars rules your 8th house and 1st house, and this is where life might be feeling like it's slowing down. Can I just say, do not book operations at this time. 8th house is operations, 1st house is the body and how we appear. You will not be happy with the outcome if you have surgeries, especially surgeries for beautification, done when Mars is retrograding, okay, and ruling these two houses. You might feel like your physical prowess and vitality is really lacking and you just can't get the mojo that you need. Maybe you want to get out there to the gym every day, but you just can't find time, or you get home from work and you're just too exhausted and it feels like you're going backwards with some health routine, care for the body, something you're doing for the physical expression of yourself into the world is struggling. You might even feel like you're cutting something out of your life now physically as well, you know. I'm not saying literally don't get surgeries, as I said, but it might feel like you are cutting something out of your physical realm. So maybe, you know, you're having to say, could be anything. You might be saying no to a friend who's just been encroaching on your good graces for too long. You might be cutting them out, or you might be cutting out maybe a child who's been mooching off you and they're now 35 and they're still living at home or whatever. You know, it might be time to cut them, not out of your life completely, but to really lay down the law, you know. So there might be a need to cut something out of your life or someone out of your life. My Aries friends, with this emphasis on the first house and the relationship axis, of course. There can also be things moving slower with the 8th house. So maybe you're due an inheritance or a tax payout or something like that, a good tax return, and it's not coming to you. Where is it? Why is it taking so long? Where is my, refund? Where is my, money that's owed to you might just not be showing up as it should be. And you're feeling like you're going backwards with the money that other people owe you. That is probably one of the biggest ways this will express for Aries people. You might also feel like some crisis in the positive is being cut out of your life. 8th house Lord is a malefic planet ruling a malefic house, and that can actually be very beneficial. You might be cutting out some problematic crisis situation out of your life, or conflict situation might be being cut out of your life because you're laying down the law, breaking away from that situation. So that's what I'm feeling into for our Aries rising, sun and moon people. Taurus rising, Taurus sun and Taurus moon people. Well, my dear Taurians, you are having Mars going retrograde down here in the 3rd house. This is happening between the 6th of December through to February the 23rd. So your speech is going to be energized, very much so in the 3rd house, but be careful, because what will happen with a retrograde Mars in the 3rd house is foot and mouth disease. Sudden hurtful words pour out of your mouth that cause long-term damage. Assertive words and straight to the point words, fair enough, that's okay. But biting words that scar, you could cause a great deal of damage if you're not conscious, Taurus, about how you say things with Mars retrograding in the 3rd house. It's not usually your style, but this energy could bring it about. You might be very impatient with listening, and in doing so, you might miss details that are very important. You're not paying attention. You're wanting to get to the next point. What's this all about? What's going to happen? Where are we at? And you're impatient with listening. Very busy, though. It's an energy for being busy with emails, letters, social media, but you're feeling like you're getting nowhere. You're posting post after post after post on Instagram, and you're losing followers. Oh my God, it feels like you're getting nowhere. Social media, 3rd house. Know that that's just the energy of this time, and it will stop. That unraveling energy will stop by the time Mars goes direct on the 23rd. But it's a time for re-strategizing. Well, maybe take a break from social media while Mars is retrograding here. Don't go there. It's a very competitive environment. It sucks. Have some time off. Or use it to prepare for a new strategy that you're going to implement when Mars goes direct in the 3rd house. Mars in retrograding in the 3rd house might give quick, unexpected trips. Maybe something goes wrong and you've got to take a quick trip to the county hospital or something like that. Or maybe, it mightn't be that something goes wrong. It might just be that, you have to travel some localized distance, not a far distance, for an unexpected reason when Mars is retrograde. Your mind can be highly stimulated as well. You might be unable to switch off. Mental energy is turned up into overdrive, racing thoughts, feeling impatient, feeling frustrated. That can be part of this energy. If you know why it's coming or where it's coming from with Mars, you can be more conscious about dealing with it. It's also a house of learning, and you might be frustrated with the learning processes of other people. Going to workshops where you've got to sit through everybody sharing how they're going and you're a million miles in front of them can be just like, oh God, this is agony. You know, it's that impatience and frustration with the learning process of other people here. Siblings and neighbors, even friends, can be a bit prone to accidents. So, you know, check in on them, make sure they're behaving safely, make sure they're, you know, doing the right thing, if you like. I mean, don't be sort of a, you know, Karen or anything like that with regard to the rules and stuff. God, we hate those sorts of people. But be more like, you know, let's say a sibling who, you know, always drives without their seatbelt on. Be sort of, you know, subtle about, you know, encouraging them to be safe on the roads, you know. You might find that neighbours and siblings and friends are behaving somewhat erratically, maybe even aggressively or in a really bossy way. Okay, so, you know, step back. That's just how it is. That's how they are with this energy. Don't take it personally. Don't let it ruin the friendship or relationship. Just know it's an energy cycle that will pass, and you just distance yourself for a time being, perhaps, to cope with it. This is a house of small business and entrepreneurial success. You might be frustrated. It might feel like you're going nowhere. You're spinning your wheels trying to make an entrepreneurial endeavor fly. Okay, know that will change after February the 23rd. Use this time to plan and strategize, refine your products, refine your processes, and know that after the 23rd of February, the momentum will come back. It's also, this is your daily environment, third house. You might find that it's a very competitive daily environment. I encourage you not to instigate competition, but just to persevere and endure and steadily, one foot in front of the other, work with the competition that's unfolding in your daily environment as best you can. Watch your mental health as well. Like I said, have some strategies at hand, some books to read, some things that can lift your mental thoughts to a higher plane in preparation for this energy. Mars retrograde in the third house of the mind. Now, Mars in your chart, Taurus, rules the 7th house and the 12th house. Aries, 12th house, 7th house, Scorpio. So this might mean that relationship dynamics with clients, with your audience, with other people is a little bit impaired. You know, you're wanting to grow your audience, it's just not growing. You're wanting to sort out a problem with a spouse, can't be resolved. You're wanting to establish a business partnership with somebody, but nobody's willing to sign on the dotted line and go into that kind of relationship with you. You feel like you're going backwards with these dynamics. It will change. It's not you. Don't take it personally. It is the cycle. Some of you might be cutting other people out of your life now, though, because of Mars retrograding, ruling your 7th house. So you might be cutting out, you know, a business partner who's really not towing the line. I remember when I worked for Astrolata, and I still do on occasion work with Astrolata, but there was somebody who was involved in Astrolata who wasn't towing the line, and Paul Arter had to do the terrible deed of cutting them out because they were not doing what they were contracted to do. And sometimes we just have to do that. It's just part of life, and Mars retrograde can sort of bring those sorts of situations about, having to cut somebody out of our life in some way. Ruling the 12th house, 12th house energy, we might feel, and I spoke about this a little moment ago, but you know, the divine, the angels, the deceased ancestors on the other side are represented by the 12th house, and they might be fighting for you. Right now, you won't be aware of that, but they could be doing some really serious work in the spiritual dimensions that you then see the results of when Mars goes direct on the 23rd of February. So hang in there, wherever you're at, knowing that the guides on the other side have got your back. They're fighting for you right now. That said, you might feel like your prayers keep going unanswered, like they're not heard. Your prayers are bouncing off the ceiling. Meditation doesn't work because your mind won't still. You know, it's okay. Just have some time out from that. You don't have to pray when your prayers feel ineffective. Know that the divine is still fighting for you on the other side. Meditations may not work. So what can you do instead? Maybe start doing some physical activity that's spiritual with Mars ruling the 7th house, 12th house rather. You know, Tai Chi, meditative walks, yoga, anything that involves some sort of movement and control of the muscles of our body that has a spiritual component to it is well worth investing time and energy into as an alternative measure during this Mars retrograde process. Yeah, they're the main things I wanted to mention for our lovely Taurus friends. Gemini rising, sun or moon people, thank you for waiting to the very end here, Gemini. I appreciate and value your patience. Mars is retrograding in your second house, and this is where you're going to be noticing perhaps a lack of mojo that might usually otherwise be there. There's a lack of energy and enthusiasm for financial growth or material acquisition. You know, you're always perhaps online looking at, I don't know, Gray's antique auctions or whatever it is, and looking for that, you know, coin that you need to fulfill your collection, or the stamp or a piece of art or whatever it is. And you're always, and you know, come Mars retrograde in the second house and you're like, can't be bothered. I just have got no enthusiasm for jumping online again tonight trying to find that missing piece for my collection. We just don't have it in us to care about the material resources when Mars is retrograding. There's no mojo there. So things can stall regarding our material momentum in life. We might find when Mars is retrograde that money comes in quickly, but it disappears quickly. We are spending, the house of spending as well as saving. Money just we don't keep it, we don't hold it when the second house energy is being activated by retrograde Mars. So, you know, maybe we've got to pay out a lot of bills instead of hanging onto our money and saving our money for a rainy day. Better to save money for a rainy day before Mars retrograde, and then you've got something to lean on if things get a bit tough financially. But you can have breakthroughs regarding resources or possessions during Mars retrograde, and sometimes we can even be cutting out certain possessions and resources that we no longer need out of our life. It's a great time for doing spring cleaning, Mars retrograde in the second house. Go through your cupboard, get rid of all those clothes that you haven't worn in 10 years, clean out your shoes, get it all sorted. This is actually a really good energy for that. Not many good things can be utilized with Mars retrograding, but this is one of them. Breakthroughs regarding possessions, cutting certain possessions out of your life. We might get very defensive and aggressive about our resources and possessions. You know, we might be fighting over a resource or possession. And I just encourage you, be conscious. Do not do that. If you get on to Gray's auctions and you find that coin that you've been looking for to complete your collection, and you are in a battle royale with somebody else, walk away. Because you're going to come off second best. You'll pay more than you need to for that coin, or you'll piss somebody off, or there will be some sort of detriment to the circumstance. Fighting for a possession is just not worth it when Mars is retrograding here. Okay, when Mars goes direct, absolutely go for it. Go your hardest, but not when Mars is retrograde. You will regret it. Now, there can be, with this energy, sort of a fighting, not necessarily with the family, but fighting for your voice to be heard in your family. This is the house of the voice, and there is an association in Vedic astrology with family here as well. So you might be fighting for your place, fighting for your voice to be heard somehow, Gemini, in the family. Family might be ignoring you for some reason with Mars retrograde here. You might feel like you've lost your mojo with regard to creating self-sufficiency. You know, and by self-sufficiency, I don't just mean, you know, having solar panels on the roof and growing chooks and veggies in the backyard. I'm talking about being able to supply the resources you need for life, you know, having your own business, using your own skills to generate money, and so on and so on. Being self-sufficient, not needing to lean on the government or anybody else. There might be a feeling like you've lost your mojo there, or that you're going backwards with your ability to support your own life materially. And that's why having a sort of a rainy day bank account is a good idea, Gemini, when you're about to have a Mars retrograde in the second house. I'll get it right. This is also the house of the voice. You might be speaking very loudly and aggressively now. Your vocal cords can take on a great deal more power than usual. You know the feeling when you're on a train and everybody's and then everyone stops talking and you're still blah, blah, blahing, and it's like, oh, you said that everybody heard me and I said something really embarrassing. You know, this is Mars in the retrograde in the second house. So that could happen to some people. Not nice, obviously. Also be careful when you're eating, because this is the house of what we eat and how we eat. Mars retrograding here can make us eat too fast. We might even choke on our food. Be careful, forewarned, forearmed. Accidents can happen relating to food. And also be careful with spicy hot foods as well. Not that in this placement it might upset your digestion, but actually it can, because Mars rules your 6th house of digestion, but you just might have a bad reaction or feel uncomfortable because of what you've eaten here. You might be eating not just spicy foods, but foods that's too hot. You haven't allowed it to cool long enough, and you might burn your tongue and that kind of thing. The final thing with Mars in the 2nd house is that you might feel like you have to compete for money or compete for something that you value in life. I've already kind of alluded to that with my story about the coins, but it's not... I'd walk away if you can. It's just not worth it when you have to compete for something under this energy. It just leaves you feeling frustrated and angsty. Totally not worth it. Now, Mars is also ruling, as I've said, the 6th house and the 11th house in a Gemini rising chart. You might feel like friendships are being cut out of your life now, or your involvement with a social group. You're being cut out of a social group, or you're cutting other people out of a social group for some reason. I feel like you're going backwards with a friendship, not growing a friendship, but the friendship perhaps is dissolving. Know that after the 23rd of February, that will come to an end, because Mars will move direct and the energy of retrograde motion ruling this house will wind up. You might also feel like you are maybe cutting out a health issue, because Mars rules the 6th house. And so maybe there's a health problem, or a debt, or a conflict situation. In the good, this could actually cause you to problem solve and end that, break it out, break away from that, cut it out of your life. On the other hand, if you're in a conflicting situation or a legal situation, you might feel like you're going backwards, Gemini, and that you're not getting where you want to go, and that you're not getting the results that you really would like. Moving more slowly in that area, things aren't resolving in the time frame you anticipated. So that's what I'm seeing, generally speaking, for our Gemini rising, sun and moon people. I just want to thank you all for joining me for this special sojourn into Mars and Mars retrograde energy. May you get through this in one piece, and I'll see you not only out the other side of Mars retrograde, but I'll see you next week with another Astro Weather Report. I'll catch you then.